21st Century Archmage. Author, Kim Gwang-soo. Chapter 11. The Rubus Merchants. Who are they? Yesterday, the village held a festival after seeing the various mushrooms and grasses I had harvested. Knowing they didn't have to rely on potatoes and wheat, their village's lifeline, to pay the tax made smiles bloom on the villagers' faces for the first time in a while. However, I didn't show the villagers the demon beast hide. Seeing as I wandered the forest alone, they were already curious about my identity, so they would definitely be wary of me if I were to show them the hide as well. Are they merchants? I was dwelling on the battle with the demonic beast while practicing my insufficient sword skills atop the cliff, where I could see in every direction, when a line of carriages and people approached the village. A rough look at the 20-plus carriages and 50 or so armed people made me think they were merchants and mercenaries. The merchants are coming. A villager who was on lookout on top of the village barricade alerted the arrival of merchants. Oh, the merchants, you say? Something I'd only seen in novels. This world's merchants. I was pretty curious. I've finished what I needed to do today, so shall I go and watch? Unlike the simple villagers, the merchants and mercenaries knew more about the vast world. I needed to get ready to go out into the world, so I welcomed their arrival. Dry nicely even if I'm not here. I was told that leather had to be dried in the shade, so I was drying the golden panther hide under a small overhang atop the cliff. The villagers couldn't come this far. Surprisingly enough, even the bugs vanished the moment I brought the demon beast hide here, leaving the place deserted. It was clear evidence that the beast's habitual killing had been rather terrible indeed. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The mercenaries aren't allowed in the village, huh? After climbing down the cliff, I saw dozens of tough-looking mercenaries who had come as the merchant's escort sitting comfortably in front of the village barricade. They scrutinized me as I tried to enter the village with a sword on my hip. Hey, kiddo. Hey, kiddo. The carriages the merchants brought were mostly empty. Now that they were done guarding those empty carriages, some of the mercenaries must have been bored because the few who were close by called to stop me. They dared to lose their sense of fear. Brothers, what's up? Only those who spoke politely would be spoken to with the same courtesy. Brothers? Puaha. Kuaha. Most of the mercenaries were wearing worm-shaped scars on their faces and bodies like medals of honor. They must have found my provocation funny, because they were busy laughing, revealing yellowed teeth. Should I give these guys a taste of fire? You could tell just by looking at them that they were third-rate mercenaries who didn't have a hint of mana, only their thick skulls and idiotic strength. If I wanted to, I could probably take care of them in the time it took to eat a meal. Do you know how to use that sword? There was a decent-looking fellow among the mercenaries. A man in his mid-30s approached me, gesturing at my sword with his eyes. Can't you tell just by looking? I didn't like how the mercenaries were treating me, so I responded flatly. As someone who lived proudly and unrestrained in the world, of course I felt offended when these inept mercenaries were provoking me. You're quite the irritable young man, aren't you? How about it? Instead of staying in this backcountry, why don't you join our mercenary group? You look to be pretty fit, and you've got a good look in your eye. What? Is this the rumored street recruiting? Tien. In Korea, people sometimes get recruited into idol groups or acting gigs by agents prowling the streets. The man was suddenly offering me to join the mercenaries. Considering the earnest look in his eyes, it didn't seem to be a joke. Leader, when will we have the time to take care of a kid like him? The Black Wyvern mercenaries might be treated like a third-rate group, but taking in a child is... The Black Wyvern mercenaries? You guys, just by looking at them, it was clear that their name, the Black Wyvern mercenaries, was an exaggeration. No thanks. You don't want to? Wouldn't it be better to live like a real man as a mercenary rather than just farming in a backcountry like this and then dying one day? It doesn't sound that attractive to me. Just look at that big-bellied mister over there. I pointed at the mercenary who had been the first to ruffle my feathers. Gah-ha! Ron, he says he doesn't like your pot-belly. Kakik, for the great Ron to be insulted by a kiddo. Don't eat anything from now on. The food is wasted on you. They must have been rather bored, because the mercenaries enjoyed making fun of Ron. This kiddo. If he weren't such an ignoramus, Ron would not have been so enraged by a little teasing. The big mercenary, whose belly jiggled as he walked, was holding a simple axe, for which I could feel an imposing air. Mr. Belly. Snickering, I teased Ron, whose eyes were as wide as a cow's. Why, you little kiddo with no manners? Ron was all hot air. He wasn't as violent-natured as I'd thought. Watch your step at night. I turned around and headed towards the village walls, ignoring Ron, who had frozen at my quiet warning. Ha 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 ha. Oh my god. Oh god, I'm dying. Ha. I could hear the stream of the mercenaries' deep-bellied laughter from behind me. Even if these third-rate mercenaries were to grab me by the pants and beg me to become a mercenary, I might just barely consider it. The way they acted was third-rate too. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. All the villagers have gathered. There was only one reason for merchants and mercenaries to have come all the way here. It was to sell something. The people who looked like merchants were talking to the villagers, including the chief, at an empty lot in the village. You want to sell your grain? Village chief, please say again. Harumph. Why are you making me repeat myself? This year, we don't have enough grain to pass over to you merchants. The village chief was believing in the mushrooms and acting bold. He clasped his hands behind his back and feigned indifference. But what is our company supposed to do then? We use 10 gold to hire those mercenaries. That's not our problem. Last year, you wheedled the prices down so low that we were forced to sell our remaining cow and even the donkey in order to pay the taxes. But to say that you'll maintain those prices this year as well, I don't have to say any more. Are these guys those wicked dare merchants? The evil dare merchants had made the kind Hans spout curses when he had mentioned them with the taxes. 10 years ago, after the monster invasion, they had apparently taken advantage of the fact that other merchant groups didn't come this far out and had continually lowered the prices. Moreover, whenever the village sold to the Darren merchants, the merchants would buy at their price and pay the village tax for them at the Viscounty. With that, there would be no need to take the potatoes and grain and sell them separately. However, the problem was their excessive profiteering. After a certain point, they began to buy the precious grain at ridiculous prices, forcing the villagers to sell even the grain they had starved to save. When they were talking about the official merchants who stole from the poor citizens in the Josian era, they were talking about these guys. You could tell with a single glance that these round, fattened merchants were cunning as hell. I don't know what you're believing in to do such a thing. You will be in trouble if you do this, you know? If you do not pay the taxes by the end of the month, everyone will be sold into slavery. Hoo-ho! The guy that seemed to be the merchant's boss was slowly revealing his true colors. His balding head, glistening oily face, and beady eyes, so small you couldn't see them, made him look like the model specimen of an evil merchant. Oof. It's fine as long as we pay the tax. As if to prove that he had really lived a fairly rough life when he was young, Chief Av showed off his guts. Unlike the other villagers, who were looking on with uncertain expressions, the chief was emanating an aura of utter confidence. This is your last chance. Will you really not sell your wheat or potatoes? Keep in mind that no merchant group will come all this way after we leave today. Despite being flustered, the merchant didn't forget to spit out one last threat. Do as you wish. The negotiations have broken down, so please get out. Captain Jacob, our guests wish to leave, so please politely escort them to the exit. Yes, Chief, shouted Mr. Jacob, the tall captain of the village militia. Pretty cool. As if venting the injustices he had suffered from the merchants all this time, the chief was going out fists akimbo. Just wait and see. Cowed by the approaching armed militiamen, the merchants rapidly went out and disappeared, shouting just wait and see. Even an onlooker like me feels refreshed. The merchants, whose names I didn't know, had turned tail and left behind vicious words. I had the feeling that this wouldn't be the end, but I didn't worry too much. Hoo-hoo, tomorrow is finally the day. Hans and I plan to leave for the Viscount's castle to go pay the tax, a 2-day trip on foot. The merchants left, their carriages rattling. After coming with empty pockets, they left with still empty pockets. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. We've arrived. That over there is Fiore Castle, where the Lord resides. Before me stood the territory's castle, which had taken 2 days of walking to reach. Hans and I had arrived at the castle with the mushrooms we planned to use for the tax, 2 blankets, and a few simple things to eat. In the past, the villagers would have needed at least 20 armed villagers to get here, but no one doubted my skills, so I was able to come here no problem with just Hans. Impressive. The sturdy castle had been built with large stones, even without a crane or other construction tools. Despite being the castle of a rural lord, it looked like a typical medieval castle, towering at least 7 meters high with several watchtowers. Kyre, watch what you say while we're here. If commoners like us say something wrong, we could be killed right away, warned Hans, who was more cowardly than his bulk suggested. Commoner? Huh. I'm a commoner, huh? This world civilization was completely different from the 21st centuries. I was once again rendered speechless by the realization that I was a commoner. Let's go in. The castle was bigger than the Eastern European ones I had seen on the school trip. Squeezing through the countless people coming and going, Hans and I managed to reach the front of the castle gate. Halt! Where are you from? Dozens of archers with bows, alongside armed soldiers, were on the lookout atop the castle wall. In front of the gate were around 10 soldiers who were screening the people coming and going for anyone suspicious. Thank you for your hard work. We are people from Luna Village and have come to pay the taxes. Luna Village? Ah, you mean that village that burned down 10 years ago. I was itching to meet those people who were called true knights, but the people in front of the castle gate were normal soldiers with chainmail and halberd-like polearms. The one that looked like the senior among them was talking to Hans. Here, this is our village identification token. Hans offered the identification token that represented Luna Village. It's fine. You may enter. Looking at the round token in Hans' hand with a look of annoyance, the soldier permitted our entrance. Because quite a lot of people were coming and going, they couldn't hold just us back. That armor is sick. It was ordinary armor worn by regular soldiers who weren't even knights, but the well-oiled armor sparkled in the sun, inspiring a burst of admiration from me. Wait! The moment I was about to follow Hans into the castle while admiring the armor, one soldier called us. What is the matter? Asked Hans hurriedly with the typical mannerism of a normal commoner. Is he also one of your villagers? Black hair is quite a rare sight. The soldier closely examined my face, which had become as rough as a hillbilly's after these last few months of sun. That is, stammered Hans, true to his honest personality that couldn't tell a lie. Haha, you have worked hard. I should have greeted you all earlier, but I was unable to open my mouth because you all looked so outstanding. My name is Kyer. I greeted politely with a smiling face. Damn it, to think I have to lower my head to run-of-the-mill soldiers that aren't even the Lord. In this world, status determined everything. As a person who had only reached the level of a commoner, I was forced to experience what it felt like to be at the very bottom. Kyer? A good name. All right, you may pass. As per the saying, don't spit on a smiling face. The soldier nodded at my courteous words and let me pass. Over here, it's not money that counts, but status alone. I should at least become a knight. It wasn't even some kind of license you could get, but I've decided to become a knight. I couldn't keep living while bowing and scraping the floor like a eunuch with this commoner status. Thank you for your hard work, sirs, I shouted loudly as I dragged Hans along, the mushroom strapped to his back. This is no good. If I just leave things to Hans, we'll be thrown into prison without even being able to pay the taxes. In a village, Hans was the reliable, kind, and simple farmer. In a city like this, I couldn't leave things to him. His clumsy appearance was just like a runaway teen who had just arrived in Seoul. Hans, let's go. Yeah, oh okay. Dragged by my hand, Hans moved along. Thus, I was able to enter a castle from Master's hometown, the Kalian continent, for the first time. This is a place where merchants gather, right? In the village, only the chief and a few others had visited the castle. Hans was one of them, but because it had been such a long time, he couldn't gather his bearings once we entered. In particular, he was quick to lose his wits as soon as he saw the middle-aged ladies shaking their voluminous butts. I'm gonna go nuts. How could someone like him possibly sell the mushrooms, pay the taxes, and acquire the necessary items for the village? I could only shake my head at the chief's inability to have a single shred of foresight. Hans, what's wrong? Wipe your drool. Sorry. It's been such a long time since I've been here that I'm completely out of it. More specifically, it wasn't because it had been a long time, but because he was spirited away by the sight of those middle-aged ladies wearing rather clean and flashy clothes. We're selling the mushrooms now. Please don't say a thing and just stay still next to me. You will? All right. Perhaps aware of his own condition, Hans meekly nodded. At least he listened well. Please take out one mushroom. Why? Why you aren't selling it here, are you? As soon as we passed the castle gates, I saw various stores. Ringing with the sounds of hammering, the expansive street was filled with shops that sold clothes, food, and other goods necessary for daily life. This was the perfect place to sell something. I can't trust the merchants here, so there's only one way, a price war. From what I've heard, Sharif mushrooms were precious goods that couldn't be easily acquired. In particular, the ones we brought were top grade. As the seller, there was nothing to regret about these goods. It would have been better if the castle was a bit bigger, but this is good enough. Ahem, ahem. I organize my thoughts and clear my voice. All right, they're here. This is a rare opportunity that doesn't come every day. Sharif mushrooms of the highest grade, picked fresh from Luna Village. where the water runs clear and the air is clean. I stood on a leg-high boulder and bellowed like I had seen often in dramas. Sharif mushrooms. Really? The people about to pass had been staring at me like I was crazy at first, but at the mention of Sharif mushrooms, their eyes grew wide with surprise. Where? Sharif mushrooms. Oh, they really are top grade. As soon as I drew out the round, gray mushroom the size of an adult's fist I had gotten from Hans, people gathered with excited exclamations. Kaya, the fragrance is so intense. My goodness, how very desirable. From what the villagers said, Sharif mushrooms could only be enjoyed by the nobility because of their amazing fragrance and taste. The gathered crowd licked their lips at the fragrance emitted by the luxurious Sharif mushrooms. Today, we brought a total of 70 Sharif mushrooms, even if we earned just 2 gold per piece. Whoa, there probably weren't many within the crowd who could buy a Sharif mushroom. However, seeing as several people ran off like flames were lit under there, but after checking the mushroom in my hand, I was sure that the real customers would soon come calling. These are precious Sharif mushrooms that you never know when you will be able to taste. As these Sharif mushrooms are top quality, the auction starts at 2 gold per mushroom. This isn't your everyday occurrence, so I hope you won't miss out on this good opportunity, everyone. T2 gold. It's cheap. At that price, you could fill your stomach with it. Just like how Matsutake mushrooms were treated as valuable in Korea, here, people knew the value of Sharif mushrooms. Everything was progressing as smoothly as I had hoped. Era? Those guys are. People wearing merchant clothes, not commoners, came hurriedly running to where I was. Among them were the all-too-familiar Darren merchants. After disappearing from the village, as if fleeing, at some point, they had come to the castle. Have a taste of frustration today. Cuckoo. An evil thought came to mind. The Sharif mushroom in my hand was an item that merchants could not easily acquire with money alone. I had easily discovered them, but actually, Sharif mushrooms weren't supposed to be mushrooms that you could find so easily. Not only that, but apparently, Sharif mushrooms picked on the rising of Luina's moon, which brought everyone's movements to a grinding halt, were the cream of the crop. These are Sharif mushrooms gathered by risking one's life to go into the mountains during Luina's moon. It seems that everyone is gathered, so we will go right into the auctioning. As a commemoration, the Sharif mushroom in my hand will start at 1 gold. After around 10 merchants that gave off the stench of money gathered, I added oil to the flame and boosted the desirability of the Sharif mushroom. This is why domestic education is so important. From the moment I entered middle school, my parents would sometimes give me a survival mission, saying that there was a possibility that they could die from an unfortunate accident. I was made to take the kimbap made by my mother and sell them at subway entrances or the airport. And it wasn't just kimbap, either. I sometimes had to take the things we didn't need at home, change it to cash, and contribute to the family. As a result of such missions, I rose to a level where I could easily lure in these merchants. I'll buy it for 2 gold. Woot! Good start. One of the merchants in the mixed crowd yelled out 2 gold. 3 gold. I'll buy it. 4 gold. Please sell it to me. The start wasn't the problem. The merchants were going crazy, shouting 1 gold higher than the prices given by others. Was 1 gold really such a worthless amount? From what I heard, 1 gold was enough to feed a regular family until they were full for a month. That was a considerable amount, even with a rough calculation. But it seemed these merchants didn't see money as money. 7 gold. I'll buy. Even as I sank into speculation, a familiar person's cry rang out. Jerk, let's see you get mad this time. Sold. This one goes to the merchant sir over there for 4 gold. What? Cough. At my words, the triumphant Darren merchant group's fat merchant stiffened in a manner that sure was nice to see. Please do not worry. We have a lot in stock. Once you are successful with a bid, please give the money to this person here and come find your wares. 3 gold was wasted, but I thought of it as a fee to see the twisted face of this evil merchant. Next item. As I spoke, Hans took out another mushroom. From now on, they will be sold in bundles of 10. Who was it that said the sale was at the whim of the seller? All right, 10 top-grade Sharif mushrooms begin at 20 gold, 25 gold, 30 gold, 35 gold. Their eyes rolling back at the very reasonable price I started off with, the merchants frothed at the mouths again and shot their fingers up. 7 to 70 gold. For some reason, the pig Darren merchant would always call at least 7 gold per piece. Is there anyone there? I will sell 10 for 50 gold. 50 gold. I'll buy out. As I feigned deafness at the daring merchant and sought a different buyer, a quick merchant cried out 50 gold. Sold. 10 mushrooms to the thin person over there. You bastard. Era? This guy. He must have been angered because the fatty daring merchant pointed at me while cussing me out. What did you just call me? I wasn't one to take things sitting down. A mere commoner dares to insult the daring merchants. Aren't you also a commoner? And when did I insult you? The red-faced pig spat out. Teach, then why didn't you sell at the price I offered? Oh, that? What to do? My ears only hear human speech. What did you say? The piggy merchant's face went from being so red it seemed it would burst to pale blue. You want to complain about me selling at that price? If so, you can go into the mountains crawling with demon beasts yourself and dig them up to sell. When making a kill, do it thoroughly. I rubbed my ear with an unconcerned look and made him feel really crappy. Jay, just wait and see. Hurrah! He was boiling with so much anger that I could even hear the sound of his teeth grinding. All right then, but I'm busy today, so let's see about that later. Okay, I teased the pig as if talking to a neighborhood kiddo. Jerk, he's real determined. He was much older than me, but a person only had worth if they acted like one. The pig merchant glared at me viciously while leaving. I will buy the remaining sharif mushrooms for 8 gold per piece. 8 gold? What kind of sucker is this? While I was faintly watching the panting pig hustle away, I heard a sitting duck's voice ring out from the crowd. It's the Rubis merchants. Che, it's over for today. Rubis merchants? There were still many things I needed to learn about the Callian continent. A neat and tidy man in his early 30s who looked like a noble appeared. As soon as he made his entrance, the other merchants smacked their lips in regret and backed off. Isn't Rubis one of the continent's big 5? To think they've even come to our territory, what a surprise. The people watching the exciting mushroom auction suddenly began to whisper amongst themselves. Continent's big 5? Oh, a conglomerate. Now that I looked at him, the person seemed to be shining. I am Jameer from the Rubis merchants. If the typical appearance of an evil merchant was the pig from the Darren merchants, the person named Jameer, who offered his hand for a handshake, was a picture-perfect example of a merchant with principles. I'm called Kyer. Kyer? It's a name that suits your unique hair well. Ooh, Donggun Hyung, go away. Tien, Jang Donggun is a Korean actor known for his suaveness. Jameer was about as tall as me. His golden head of hair and lavender-colored eyes were charming, and deeply set eyes and raised nose were more than enough to qualify him as a handsome man. It's not appropriate to talk here, so let's go to the inn I am staying at. Sound good? Only I'm hungry, so please treat me. Treat you? Huh, all right, I'll treat you to a meal. Though he was still in his early 30s, Jameer looked like a person who would achieve great success later on as a merchant. Hans, let's go. Huh? Oh, okay. Still unable to figure out head or tail of what was happening, Hans nodded as he followed us with a stupefied expression. Chapter 12. Apprentice Priestess Aramis. Cool. Kaya. This is the taste. After entering the inn Jameer was staying at, called the Forest Rest, refreshing beer and various kinds of snacks were ordered right away. I didn't know how they did it, but the beer was cold enough to make my mouth tingle despite the weather still being hot. The taste of a bitter and powerful fragrance went guzzling down my throat. It was a completely different level from the Korean beers I had stolen sips of from my father. This deep flavor was a sign of well-brewed beer. May I have another glass? When did he drink all that? In the time it took me to take 2 sips, Hans had guzzled down the entire large wooden mug and was smacking his lips. Haha, please help yourself. Owner, one more glass here. Hans had looked at me and asked, but Jameer was the one who made the order with a bright laugh. This is nice. With this one glass of beer, I had the feeling that I was experiencing the outside world. My next goal was to go even further beyond once I had cultivated enough strength. Since I was already in Master Bumdaff's homeworld, I wanted to do some proper sightseeing. 8 gold is quite a lot, so why do you want to buy each mushroom at such a price? Facing Jameer, who was wearing an unreadable smile, I asked the point I was curious about. I thought it would already be killer if we could sell the mushrooms for at least 4 gold each, but Jameer was offering 8. A person from a huge merchant group like his wouldn't take a loss. Let me formally introduce myself. I am Jameer Baines, one of the 12 supervisors of the Rubis merchants. Supervisor. Next month is the month of the goddess of abundance, Sapphire Nim. As you may know, Sapphire Nim is not only the goddess of abundance, but also the goddess of festivities. T/N. Nim is an honorific of respect, the Korean equivalent of Sama. What do you mean? May know. I know jack shit. Because I was busy eking out a living with the villagers day by day, I didn't get the chance to learn much about this world. In addition, I invested my time in magic and swordsmanship in order to gain the skills to survive, so my knowledge of the Kalian continent was rather sparse. Also, from this month until the next, nobles will be collecting the formal taxes. Now I got it. So what it boils down to is that it's a formal holiday made in the name of the gods to play. And since the nobles are even gathering taxes, high-quality products can be sold at high prices. Did you understand? Well, I got the gist of it. You're quite quick-witted. For a guy barely over 30 years of age, Jameer gave off the feeling of a generous uncle in his 50s. He gives off traces of mana. Oh, a mage. I hadn't tried a mana scan, but the trace of mana was obvious. He was a person with a lot of secrets, even for a merchant. From what I'd heard from the people just now, it seems you normally wouldn't come to a rural territory like this. Trailing off, I pried Jameer for answers. Originally, yes. Normally, middlemen merchants dispatched to each territory would purchase goods from their designated places and then sell to the nobles in need. But this year, it's been particularly difficult to procure high-quality specialties. Goods that usually come from the Dapis kingdom, like madder, sharif, and rooty mushrooms, and lickum tea, have been particularly hard to purchase. That is because the lords have been busy creating factions over the royal ascension instead of focusing on monster and demon beast exterminations. Jameer explained, giving more information than required. Royal ascension? Does that mean there'll be a civil war? It was a plot I had often read in novels. Will there be a civil war? I asked. It probably won't get to that point. Dapis Kingdom is a small country surrounded by powerful nations, so they won't walk a path that leads to self-destruction. My head hurts. It's not even something I need to worry about, but did he say madder? He said madder was hard to acquire. Because I had the experience of dragging out all my strength to catch one, I knew how hard it was. They were powerful creatures that could topple a decent-sized boat, and a mage or knight capable of using Aura Blade wouldn't stoop to such manual labor. So it was a difficult prey to catch with the strength of commoners alone. Sigh, look at what I'm saying to someone I'm meeting for the first time. Thanks for today. Thanks to you, I was at least able to get some top-grade sharif mushrooms and could somewhat fulfill my goal for coming here. He looked like a cool-headed merchant, but it seemed he had a lot of worries like regular people did on the inside. Whether you're the chairman of a conglomerate or a beggar, it's just as hard to secure your 3 meals per day. That was something my grandpa in the countryside always said. Whether you were well off or not, eating and pooping was all the same. It's just that your effort would decide whether you ate good food and pooped gold or ate rough food and had diarrhea. Even if madder are caught, isn't preserving the fish a problem? It's not winter, so they'll spoil fast. I threw out another question. Since long ago, during the 3 months when madder passed through the Talman Sea, magic refrigerators and merchants are stationed at each fishing village capable of catching madder. But this year, the sea monsters have suddenly become violent, so there aren't many days when they can go out to sea. Even for people who live and die by the ocean, it's true for everyone that they wouldn't want to knowingly risk their lives. That's true. Even 10 years ago, during this time, merchants would bring magic refrigerators to our village and camp out. It was too dangerous to catch more than a few madder, but it would be an occasion for festivities on days we caught one, added Hans, who had been busy gulping down his beer. Magic refrigerator. That's right. Magic exists here, doesn't it? If there were electric refrigerators in the 21st century, there were magic refrigerators here. Hoo-hoo, and I'm a genius mage. Through happenstance, I met Merchant Jameer from the Rubis Merchants. It must be serendipity granted by God. Then the prices this year should be rather high. A good quality one weighing at least 100 kilograms can fetch up to 35 gold. It's particularly necessary for nobles who live inland to prepare a madder dish for their parties. Oh, 35 gold. Hearing the news that the tuna flopping around like energetic little chicks in the village seaside made my lips almost reach my ears with mirth. Not just a few gold, but 35? Hans, who had misinformed me of the madder's price, was also surprised. Yes, the goods are in such short supply right now that the prices have swelled up. Despite being someone with a high position in a large merchant group, Jameer answered the country bumpkin Hans politely. Not only was he good at planning, but his disposition was also decent. Would you be able to acquire a few of those magic refrigerators within several days? Magic refrigerators? As long as madder can be acquired, I can prepare hundreds of them right away. But why do you ask? Why do you think? I'm trying to rake in a fortune here. If all goes well, It may be possible to acquire some mater, hiding my true thoughts. I feigned nonchalance as I sipped my beer. Tea truly. Unable to maintain the calm demeanor he had possessed until now, Jameer rose from his seat in a hurry and exclaimed, "For each fish over 100 kilograms, 40 gold. Of course, they will be top-quality goods without many injuries. What do you think? 45? No, if they really are at that level, then I'll offer 50 gold. Can you really do it? Wow, you sure are decisive." It was a huge jackpot I never expected. I thought it was even possible that the price of a single tuna could handle the entirety of the village's taxes. Territories owned by nobles would have hundreds of places like the Luna village, and they valued honor more than money. For them, money was probably not the issue. Shall I try being a lord too? The position of a lord was similar to my idea of paradise. That's right. Why didn't I think of that? In order to return to Earth, I would have to at least reach the 8th circle like my master. Who knew when those enlightenments would occur? Since I would have to wait anyway, why not make my paradise on this continent? A kingdom just for me. Somehow, my chest suddenly tight as hope surged within me like a fountain. I cannot make any guarantees, but I will give it a shot. Before that, could you pay for the sheriff mushrooms? We have to pay taxes and buy this and that. Of course. Terry-san, bring the money. Yes, supervisor. One of the merchants watching over us in the inn responded loudly and approached us. 59 mushrooms in total. Calculating the final cost, since it is a large quantity, why don't we round it up to 60 and settle it at 480 gold? Let's do that. I have already checked the goods, so give him 480 gold. Understood, sir. Clink. After Jameer gave the order, the man named Terry-san brought out a terrifyingly hefty pouch from inside his coat. He opened the pouch and began to count out the precise number of coins. And money. And gold at that. I had never lost my wits because of money, but the gleam of gold made my jaw drop unconsciously. After all, as someone once said, if you eat well before you die, you'll have pretty clothes even in the afterlife. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. K. Kyer, is this a dream or a reality? Hans trembled as he looked around warily, clutching a lump sum in his bosom for the first time in his life. To be so alarmed over just this much, it still didn't come close to making up for saving my life. How could a few hundred gold possibly add up to the cost for saving my one and only life? That's the administrative building, right? Seems to be the case. This so-called lord went to the royal capital and hasn't been seen for the last few years, right? And the guy called the administrator has been pigging out on the territory as he pleases. After settling the price of the sheriff mushrooms, I obtained information regarding this territory from Jameer as well as the owner of the inn. Rotten bastard. As an administrator, he should only be a public service worker, but he's been scheming with the Darren merchants to line his own pockets. Even more infuriating was the fact that this administrator person had no interest in the lives of the residents. His only interest was colluding with the Darren merchants to empty the pockets of the citizens. Alt, where are you coming from? A knight. I finally get to see a knight. The administrative building was in front of the Lord's mansion, a villa surrounded by high walls in the middle of the castle. The entrance of the 2-story building was guarded by a knight wearing sturdy silver armor and around 10 soldiers. Kyer, be sure to just bow your head. If a Sir Knight sees fault in you, it's instant death, Hans quietly warned as he bowed his head with a humble expression. This isn't even 007 license to kill. After seeing from his fearful trembling that he wasn't joking, I also lower my head. We are people from Luna Village who have come to pay the taxes. Luna Village? That village is still around. The knight's reaction wasn't much different from the soldiers at the castle gate. Go in. Thank you very much, sir. What the is that all? For someone who's supposed to be a knight, this mana is... The mana I felt from the knight guarding the administrative building was as pathetic as a rat's tail. Even without doing a scan, I could tell that he didn't have much mana. I could fight a knight like this with my eyes closed. It wasn't arrogance. Even if he was a knight, he didn't inspire any awe. Like that, I followed Hans into the place called the administrative building. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You're from Luna Village? Why, yes, sir. That person is the administrator? I had imagined a pot-bellied retainer with eyes like a rat, but the administrator in front of me was a knight in his mid-40s. He's got quite a lot of mana. The administrator was giving off an energy far greater than the knight outside. With the sword on his waist, even while in office, he looked like a stereotypical knight, giving off a masculine charm with an angular jawline. We could not tend to the village because of the shortage of strength in the territory. It's a relief that the village is still standing. Avut? Is he really the administrator? The administrator was uttering unexpectedly kind words. His words were filled with a sincere worry towards Luna Village. Please do not worry. Simply being a resident of the proud Fiori territory is reason to thank the gods. Unlike what I had feared, Hans responded smoothly while even sticking in some flattery. I could see why the chief had picked Hans out for this trip. I am grateful that you say so. The tax is set for this year. Here they are. I got a strange feeling from this person who was supposed to be the administrator. This man's way of speech was dignified, and every single action of his had the weight of nobility behind it. 30 gold is written here. Is that correct? Huh. 30 gold. Holding a single document, the administrator said it was 30 gold. It was no wonder that Hans was flustered. Is that not the case? The crop yield from around 200 villagers doesn't amount to much. I set the tax rate to 30% because it is an independent village. Is it too much? This jerk is playing with people. This spring, the administrator had sent soldiers to the village to order them to pay a tax of 50 gold. Hans and I looked at each other. And no, that's not it. Our village is... Kerchunk. The moment Hans was about to utter 50 gold, the door we had entered from opened wide. Cough. My lord. What did you arrive? WH what? Lord. As someone barged in, the administrator, whose inner appearance was actually as I had imagined, a girthy man with beady rat eyes embodying greed, exclaimed with surprise. What are you all doing? How dare you raise your heads high? Do you not recognize the appearance of the Lord? True to the notion that the person who farted is the first to point fingers, this treacherous retainer was quick to yell at us. Haha, Administrator Trimo, let it be. It's my fault for staying in the capital for so long. Greetings to the Lord. As if greeting a king, Hans kneeled and brought his forehead to the ground. As he did so, he clutched my pants with his right hand and dragged me down. Greetings to the Lord. Yoa, this hurts my pride. Besides giving formal bows in order to receive money on Lunar New Year, this was the first time in my life prostrating myself like this. I was forced to show the greatest respect with a bowed head to this person, the Lord. Full, a lord. I'll become one for sure. Yet another reason to become a lord had appeared. With a commoner status alone, you definitely have to go around bowing and scraping all the time. I could never keep living like a piece of gum stuck to asphalt, bent over 24/7. But Administrator Trimo, is the tax set for Luna Village this year not actually 30 gold? Asked the Lord as he held a thick document. Aye, it is, sir. Thanks to your generosity as a merciful Lord, even independent villages have been fixed at 30% tax rates. After a moment of panic, Trimo rubbed his hands together as he gave a shameless response. Should I just call him out? Looking at the way things were going, it was a fact that this Trimo guy was embezzling taxes behind the Lord's back. You fellows, did you say something in front of the Lord? With lasers in his eyes, Trimo berated Hans and me as we kneeled with our heads bowed. They didn't say anything, said the Lord. Is that so? I only said so because peasants will spout nonsense at times. Peasant. This son of a gun put me, the one and only Kang Hyuk, just one syllable away from a worm. I engraved the sight of his fat face deep into my memory. Tien, the Korean word for peasants, also has the word for worm in it. The taxes are indeed 30 gold. Pass over the money to Administrator Trimo here. My lord, are you heading to the mansion? That's right. It's time for Zagan's meal, and he might scare the servants, so I have to go. Then I will come find you after a short while, sir. Then, work hard. Goodbye, my lord. I didn't know who the Lord was talking about, but apparently there was someone he had to feed. He walked back out of the open door and left. You said you came from Luna Village? Why, yes, Lord. No, Administrator Nim, replied Hans at once, looking half dead from the Lord's sudden appearance. It would be best if you didn't spread around what you just heard. And the taxes are 50 gold. Territory management is difficult because the merciful Lord is receiving lower taxes due to useless people like you. That's why I have no choice but to do this. Keep that in mind. To be this shameless. As if he had welded a steel plate to his face, Administrator Trimo took an extra 20 gold in taxes like it was nothing. From what I heard, there were hundreds of villages in the territory, so the money he was embezzling must be enormous. You bastard, just wait. I may not be Li Mongryong, but I will definitely send you to hell. Tien, Li Mongryong is a fictional police detective. How could he steal the poor commoner's hard-earned money as if he had nothing better to do? Here it is, sir. Hans proffered the prepared 50 gold. To me, it was only a few pennies worth, but if the villagers hadn't met me, the blood, sweat, and tears of the villagers would have been in that money. But did you kick out Ryan, even though he worked hard to go see you? This Ryan you are referring to is... Oh my, it seems you can't even remember this. I sent Dara Merchant Group's Ryan in order to spare myself from the effort, but he said you coldly refused him. I'll be watching you. Rotten bastard. Open robbery and blackmail to boot. Count yourself dead already. Every cell in my body shivered at the joy of discovering someone who was shittier than the crown prince of the Osung Group, Huang Sung-taek. You're smiling? Okay, that smile. Let's see how long you can keep it up. A smile of satisfaction danced on Administrator Trimo's lips as he counted the money. I could see that he would look exactly the same as Darren's Ryan after eating a load of humiliation from me. Please acquire all of these goods for me. All of this. After meeting the Lord and the Administrator, we went straight back to the Forest Rest, where Jameer was staying. Then I borrowed a paper and pen, wrote down all the items I could think of, and passed the paper over. 5 carriages with 10 horses, 400 bags of finely ground flour, 20 cows, sheep and pigs each with mixed gender ratios, 100 chickens, 50 suits of sturdy leather armor, bows and spears, 100 swords, clothes in various colors for 300 people, various kinds of farming tools like screws and seeds as well. And finally, an enspelled container that produces cold beer. Young man, are you trying to construct an entire village? After reading the list aloud, Jameer looked at me with surprise. I asked for good prices. It seemed like it would take a long time to gather everything on my own, so if I were to take Hans and try to buy all those goods, one day would be far from enough. We'd be lucky if it just took several days. Also, we would get ripped off hardcore by the merchants, guaranteed. It was easiest to ask for a favor and just leave this to a professional. I thought you weren't ordinary from the first time I saw you, but this is impressive. How about it? Any thoughts about becoming a merchant? Another scouting? Geez, my popularity is just too good. No thanks. Of course, I shook my head. I've got to be a lord at the very least. Anything else is unnecessary. My first and foremost goal was to recover the paradise I had lost. Any professions unrelated to that were out of the question. If you were to come under me, I would raise you to supervisor level in a short amount of time. Think about it again. As supervisor. At Jameer's words, the attendant by his side, Terry's son, made an expression of utter surprise. It seemed the offer position was pretty high up. Still, no thank you. Why do you say that? It should be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you, said Jameer, showing a face of regret. I have a different dream. A dream, you say? If that's the case, then it can't be helped. As a smart merchant, he understood what I meant. Instead, be sure to keep the promise this time with me. The motto of my family is honesty. A motto of honesty. Truly a family that suits a merchant. He wasn't even that old, but Jameer spoke like an old person. Then, please depart on the morning of the day after tomorrow. The morning of the day after tomorrow. So fast. And if you wish to get the mater, you will have to depart from here at around that time. Hit the iron while it's hot. There's nothing good about dragging things out. Understood. I'll trust you and try investing my hand this time. Jameer Nim, but this is the decision of a Rubis Merchant Group supervisor. Prepare every magic refrigerator in this territory and the surroundings at once. Yes, supervisor. Terry's son, who had been about to protest, bowed his head at Jameer's words as it was an order from a supervisor. It was probably because their discipline was so strong that they could become one of the top 5 on the continent. The only thing left is the potion, right? Potion, an item that costs several gold per piece. The chief had said to get at least 10, but I was thinking of a greater number. Catching a fish for a hungry man would only feed him for a day, but giving him a rod would feed him for a lifetime. The temple, Sigh. The temple could be said to be the highest hurdle today. It seemed I would have to try challenging it for now. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Oh, isn't this quite grand? The temple in Viscount Fiore Castle was considered the turf of the goddess of mercy, Naren. In front of me stood a temple supported by 10 arched pillars. Like a temple from ancient Greece, the beautiful and majestic sight was pretty impressive. The temple's potion is holy water blessed by a priest devoted to God. It's a cure-all with healing and magic resistance power. The temple's potion was way more cost-efficient than the production methods for magic potions in my head. Potions for magic were costly to produce, using high-class ingredients like troll blood, and they were unpopular because there could also be side effects with use. Therefore, a decent mage would just use heal instead. Actually, the Holy Knight profession is one of the decent ones out there. If I learned it well and returned to Earth, I bet I could become a leader of a religion. I thought back to the reason why it was inevitable that Master could amass a huge amount of wealth on Earth. He possessed an enormous amount of magic-related knowledge. Of course, money would be running hilly-billy into his pockets. Welcome, brother. The goddess of mercy, Naren, loves her brethren always. When I entered the temple, I was immediately greeted by a kind-looking priest wearing white robes. I'm the one in charge of this temple, Priest Heder. How may I help you? Are you in need of God's assistance? I don't trust it, that white beard. Master Bumdaff, who looked way more legit than any miracle quack, maintained a beard in order to fool the naive. I had the feeling the priest, smiling amiably in front of me, was doing the same thing. I came today because I wish to acquire potions. This time, our village. Priest Heder. The moment I was about to tell the priest the reason for our visit, I heard a very familiar voice. Would you look at that? It was Ryan, the Darren merchant who got kicked out by the chief, and a mouthful of frustration for me. His fat body shook enormously as he called the priest. Aren't you Ryan Nim, one of God's faithful servants? For what reason have you run over with such haste? That is, I have something urgent to tell you. Is that so? Then let us go inside. Brother, please wait here a moment. As if he and Ryan were well acquainted, Priest Heder showed mirth as he greeted the merchant. Surely he wouldn't be. As he followed the priest, Ryan turned around and sent a venomous look my way. All right then, you try your cute tricks. He was one of the people on my hit list. I was planning to show him the painful truth of life anyway. So I just waited for what petty trick he was going to play. HM? Oh, the interior of the temple was quite spacious. In order to magnify the sense of holiness, various religious items made of gold and silver were gleaming under the candlelight. A statue of a beautiful, topless goddess was smiling benevolently at the center of the temple. Even among all these lavish sights, a single existence captured my attention right away. A praying angel. A woman was kneeling and praying, her long blue hair flowing over a white robe devoid of any decoration. Considering that her robe was similar to the priest's, I could tell that she was no ordinary lady. I wonder how she looked from the front. From the back, her appearance was so perfect that I wanted to give her 11 out of 10 points. Holiness earnestly devoted to God was shining from her back like a halo, and the sight of her fragile back was enough to ignite any man's protective instinct. Ahem, brother. While my curiosity towards the woman was reaching its peak, the old priest named Heder appeared again. Yes, priest. Please speak. You said you wanted to acquire potions, correct? Yes. The potion in our village has lost its effectiveness, so we need a new one. We need around 10 of them. It regrets me to say this, but this temple cannot sell potions to you. Excuse me? The priest suddenly changed his tune. An unpleasant light was shining in the priest's eyes as he told us he could no longer sell potions to us. I heard that you have caused damage to a merchant group managed by a faithful servant of Naranim. And no, that is... I need not speak more. Naranim may be the goddess of mercy, but naturally, she loves and protects her own. Those who interfere with the work of God can never be granted the power of God. Priest, that's not it. Then I am busy, so goodbye. Before I could finish, Heder hurried to draw a cross and scurried away. I was sure he had received a proper dose of medication. Seriously? Ho-ho, cocky brat. Try dealing with this. I'm truly curious as to how long you can last without potions in that backcountry. A short while after Heder made his exit, the piggy Ryan from the Darren Merchants popped out from a side door in the temple and passed by us with a sneer. Your name is Ryan, yeah? How dare a young brat speak down to an elder? At my casual speech, Ryan's face burned red hot, as if he'd already been in a bad mood. What, you want to go? I'll mince those rolls of fat for you. I activated a bit of mana as I looked straight into his beady eyes. Why, you bastard? Ho-ho. Whatever, try your best. Soon, your village will be torn to pieces by demon beasts. Having realized his advantage, the pig retreated backwards, not forgetting to spit out a final vicious curse. Remember this. Lightning will strike you bastards soon. Lightning? Paha. Do as you want. You little piece of shit, sneered the pig Ryan as he fled the temple. Geez, there's always someone like him no matter where you go. There is always someone using their tiny authority to harass people who had nothing. Until the day I get buried, I wouldn't forgive such people. I apologize. As I was about to follow the fleeing pig out of the temple, a clear voice sounded next to me like an auditory hallucination. I subconsciously turned my head. Gasp! I could not help but let out a cry. Angelina Jolie? No. How can you explain this beauty? She was fairly tall at around 167 centimeters, 5 feet 5 inches. Her skin was as translucent as a newborn baby who had never seen the sun. She had deeply set large brown eyes. Her nose was raised even without the power of silicone, and her lips were small but red. And, most spectacularly of all, she had a faint radiance around her that made her shine. She possessed such a noble beauty that it was almost difficult to look straight at her. I apologize under Naranim's name that we cannot relay God's love to you. As if she had overheard my conversation with Heder, the woman bowed her head, her eyes looking moist with tears. Her refined movement of lightly pressing a hand to her enrobed chest was very refined. An electrifying feeling surged inside me. Excuse me, but may I ask who you are? You should first know the other person's identity to accept their apology, right? Right? I am an apprentice priestess of the goddess Naran, Aramis. Apprentice priestess? Only. From what I could see, this apprentice priestess, Aramis, was positively dripping with God's love. Although I could feel more devotion from the temple boss, Heder, the woman had introduced herself as merely an apprentice priestess. She's really pretty. She may be a sister of the faith, but her pure beauty was an emotional sight. Yirin must be patiently waiting for me back at school, but the priestess in front of me was fine enough to be called the embodiment of beauty. Aramis Nim, what do you think a god truly thinks as he or she gazes upon humans? Pardon? I'm deeply disappointed by those who don a priest's appearance and dirty God's love, the love that shines down on all creatures from above like the sun in the sky, with their filthy hands due to their own greed. Facing Aramis, I share the thoughts I'd always had towards religious people. Aramis Nim, do you not feel it? Naranim over there may be smiling mercifully on the outside, but in her heart, she must be crying, deeply hurt by the priests who call themselves her servants. Ah, and my harsh criticism, Aramis let out a small cry. This isn't the only temple. Even if Aramis didn't accept my words, it didn't matter. The Rubis merchants could get any number of potions, I was sure. I finished what I had to say and smoothly turned. I felt kind of bad about basically venting my anger towards this apprentice priestess who was powerless. Please wait a moment. Aramis' voice, wet with tears, rang out behind me. I have sinned. I know, we have sinned. I heard Aramis sobbing as she slumped to the ground. I just said a few words about the actions of these priests who were no different from religious people in the 21st century, but Aramis took it to heart and repented with tears. I suddenly felt like the bad guy. To sell God's love, the sin of vainly taking offerings, the sin of denying those loved by God using one's name as a servant, the sin of failing to embrace the sick and poor. I repented all. I wasn't the one to repent anything, but the apprentice priestess Aramis was denouncing her sins. But what can be done? With my feeble authority, I cannot do anything. Even if I want to embrace God's devoted, these thin arms of mine cannot handle even a single person. Even though I wish to, I cannot casually use God's love due to restrictions made by fellow servants. Please teach me, O messenger of God. Show me the path I must walk. Messenger of God? Dafuk. This isn't what I meant to happen, but Aramis was begging me for a response. But how in the world was I supposed to know God's feelings? Everything is a projection of the heart. If you believe that you cannot, then that will become a reality you cannot overcome. But if you steel yourself with the notion that you can, then there's not a thing to fear in the world. Moreover, isn't there Naranim standing behind you? What is there to fear? There's a God who is unbeatable by any means in the world behind you. The words flowed smoothly from my mouth. For a moment, I had the feeling that I actually was a messenger of God. A projection of the heart. That wasn't something I came up with, but a very cool teaching from the great monk Won-hyo, a saying I learned from Korea's national curriculum. I gotta say, Korea's education is world-class. Once again enlightened on the importance of education, I turned and walked away. There was nothing more to say to Aramis. Chief had repeatedly reminded me to get some potions, but there was nothing I could do when these merchants of God refused to sell. What a nice scent. An unfamiliar scent blew in from somewhere and drifted into my nose. I felt uplifted thanks to the fragrance that was more refreshing than mint and as sweet as spring flowers blossoming. Aramis. It didn't take 2 brain cells to figure out that the still-crying Aramis was the source of the smell. Chapter 13. Kyr the Mage. Giddy up, you guys. Hiya. Hiya. Nii. Glop. 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 Having stayed the night at the castle and woken up at the crack of dawn, Hans was excitedly driving the newest carriage model drawn by 2 horses. Since there was no real need to linger at the castle, we packed a few daily necessities and left early in the morning. Nisu. I was propping myself up with an arm atop a thick blanket on the floor of the carriage, feeling the bumpy rotation of the wheels. I guess it's about time we left, I mused. If possible, I would have liked to leave the village only after reaching the 5th circle, but an enlightenment wasn't something that could be solved like a math problem. Besides, I couldn't stay in Luna Village forever. My mind was like the endless blue sky I could see from my position laying down. I yearned to explore. I need more info, general knowledge about this world. Even the chief, who was apparently the smartest one in the village, was just a neighborhood pitcher, not a major league player. At most, he knew about a few gods, kingdoms, and a few other scraps of knowledge that even I already knew. I asked Jameer to get some potions, so those are taken care of. With all those goods I ordered, as long as they're used well, the village can last several years, no problem. After that, they're on their own. My relationship with Luna Village had started because they happened to save my life. I had already done my utmost for them. I couldn't continue to live for them forever. Hey, Kyr. Suddenly, the rattling carriage stopped, and Hans called me with a fearful voice. Jan, what's up? We shouldn't be far from the village. I yawned wide as I stretched and raised my head. The sight outside made my body pause mid-stretch. Who are those Hyungnims? T/N. Hyungnim is a term of respect for an elder brother, much like a Nikki in Japanese. The only road heading to Luna Village cut through a few small forests and an uninhabited stretch of plains. Blocking the road were around 20 figures on horseback. Hans, do you know them? Is this a time for jokes, Kyr? They must be bandits who are keeping an eye on us. Putting shame to his size, Hans trembled as he named the mounted people bandits. I was bored anyway, so this is perfect. They could be bandits who observed us making a fuss in the territory and followed us, like Hans said, or they could be connected to the no-good Darren merchants who were grinding their teeth at me. I thought they were most likely the latter. That jerk sending these thugs. There was no reason for me, a person who had even killed a demon beast, to fear these bandits who looked half-baked at first sight. Hans, what should we do, Kyr? Just give them everything and beg them to spare our lives. Then they'll sleep. And my quiet chant. Hans fell into the deep embrace of sleep. Memorized life, FTW. You're all dead meat. I couldn't just allow those who came looking for trouble where there was none to walk away scot-free. Crack. I cracked my hands as I rose from the carriage floor. 20 people. Perfect. We were about half a day of travel's distance by carriage from the village. On this wide, empty plain, there wasn't a single person who would help me. Thursday thump. My foes began to move. I jumped from the carriage, landing with a light thud. Then I stood there, tapping my feet in time with the enemy's charge. Asterisk. Oh, you must be the fearless kid from Luna Village. Just as I expected, these people definitely knew me. Mercenaries? No, that's not it. These guys had a completely different feel from the free-spirited mercenaries who had come to our village. Except for the man in his early 40s who was swaggering in the front. The men lined up behind him were showing controlled movements like trained soldiers. Who might you be? I asked, cocking my head. Us? Cuckoo. You're asking a lot for a dead man. Did the piggy merchant from Darren, Ryan, send you? From the looks of it, y'all aren't mercenaries. Is it all right for you to persecute citizens like this without the Lord's permission? Surprised by my bullseye, the men looked at each other uneasily. They're soldiers, huh? As I thought, they were definitely soldiers sent under the scheming of Ryan and that administrator. By now, the story of my trade with the Rubis merchants must have spread in the small city, and the administrator was surely afraid that his dirty laundry would be exposed because of the Lord. You're quite something for a youngster, uttered the person who looked like the boss with a dangerously low voice. At the same time, the group of soldiers began to emanate bloodthirst. Bringing up the Lord had definitely provoked them. TSK. Those who live on taxes paid by the citizens should know some shame. Have you nothing better to do than to play bandit? Shit. Clatter. Shut your mouth. Upon hearing my brief verbal thrashing, the soldiers began to draw their swords while mounted. Horseback soldiers without any armor on. Will the Lord find out if I give them a bit of punishment? The cavalry had surely left their armor behind somewhere before coming here. Unlike regular soldiers, mounted cavalry were probably a pretty important part of the territory's fighting force. Kill him. Understood. As soon as the order from the man at the front came down, one of the mounted soldiers came charging over, urging his horse into a gallop. Don't make me laugh. As if trying to kill me with one swing, he swung his sword with a big movement while atop his horse. Clang! I put a slight amount of mana into the sword given to me by the chief and met the soldier's descending sword. Yawa! Flop! The sword flew out of his hand from the unexpected parry, and the impact traveled into the soldier's body at the same time, sending him rolling to the ground. Bam! Unable to gather his bearings after falling down, the soldier took a low kick to the head from me and fainted. Ah! The soldiers let out cries of surprise as they witnessed their colleague get eliminated by a single exchange. So, there was something more to you. Hoo-hoo! It still doesn't change the fact that you will be finished here today. Who says? Mate, do you have balls? I imitated a cocky thug's mannerisms to provoke the guy who looked like the leader. This guy is a knight. Not only was the angered man giving orders to the other soldiers, but traces of mana were also flowing from his body. Kill him, came the order again. Knee, Bobby-a-dum, B-a-b-a-dum. 3 of the soldiers that were lined up about 10 meters away galloped towards me. Should I get a bit more serious now? I could take care of them no problem with my sword, too, but I hadn't yet shown them the main course, my magic. Magic arrow. Flash. As the simple second circle attack, spell, incantation rang out, 10 magic arrows were formed in the air. According to the law of mana, the number of arrows would increase in proportion to the circles possessed by the caster. Fall down. Even as they charged, the soldiers were shocked by the sudden appearance of magic arrows, sparkling ivory white in the air. I concentrated a little and guided the arrows toward their bodies. Whoosh. Bababam. Arc. Ga. Ack. After taking full-on blows from magic arrows the thickness of an arm, the soldiers dropped like flies from their horses. Since they didn't even have any armor on, a few of their ribs were probably destroyed at the very least. These guys, I wonder if they have medical insurance? I wasn't the one getting injured, but I was seriously worried. As ever, I was the friendly Kang Hyuk. Mage. How come a mage is... The 16 soldiers remaining simultaneously shouted Mage as they stared at me with fearful gazes. Which magic tower does the esteemed mage belong to? Asked the person who I thought was a knight with a trembling voice. Magic tower? Is he talking about the magic tower Master Bumdaff lived in? There's nothing like that. Have you heard of this? I'm a mage from the GD. TN. High School Equivalency Exam. GD. There was no way he'd know what that meant. The knight repeated the unfamiliar acronym. Then, his face suddenly reddened with the realization that I was making fun of him. You damn bastard. As if to prove that he was a knight, he jumped from his horse, swinging his sword. Slow. Compared to the demon beast I caught, the knight's movements were unbearably slow. Huh, I majored in magic, but these days, double majoring was a popular trend. I thrusted my sword at the knight's lower body as I cut off his charge. Ah, he was only looking out for magic, but a sword flew his way instead. Caught off guard, the knight hastened to pull back his sword and defend. Aura blade. For the first time since coming to this world, I was able to admire someone else's aura blade. CLCL clang. Oh, what kind of aura blade is this? Contrary to my anticipation, the knight's thin and fragile aura blade sputtered out and disappeared as soon as it clashed with mine. His body stiffened, and in that moment of vulnerability, an intense kick came flying his way. Bam! Guh. Taking a mana-charged blow to his side, he struggled to breathe, his face turning blue, and his body going stiff in pain. Pang! A light roundhouse kick easily finished him off. Count your lucky stars that you met a 21st century Archmage nymph who knows the value of life. Frothing from the mouth after eating my powerful kick, the knight passed out. Dismount. The soldiers had gone pale, like puppies who had just lost their mother. I ordered them to dismount. Fireball. Fush. What these headless chickens needed right now wasn't medication, but a thrashing. I floated a fireball the size of a person in front of me. Yawa. Please spare us, esteemed mage. It was impossible to tell who did it first. The remaining soldiers scrambled to throw down their weapons, dismount from their horses, and prostrate themselves. They're acting like cornered chickens. The sight before me showed me what kind of image a mage held for a regular soldier. Not a single soldier acted out of line as they laid low, smashing their heads into the ground. Did the administrator send you? I asked lightly. Why, yes. A person who looked like a senior among the soldiers raised his head slightly and carefully responded. Does the Viscount know that you guys are doing such bad things? That is, the Lord was probably in the dark. For what I could tell, the Viscount, who was the Lord of Fiore, wasn't that kind of person. All of you strip, lay down your weapons, and take off the tops of your clothing. Now, the soldiers were dumbfounded by my sudden command. Move, move, move. Do you want to be turned into fireball roasted chickens? In my second year of middle school, as a group, we experienced a Marine Corps boot camp firsthand. The mannerisms of the instructor who had driven us crazy back then were a big help now. You understood. We're taking them off. We're doing it. Perfectly subdued by me, the soldiers took off their dagger, various military items, and their tops. Strip everything from the guys over there, who are unconscious. Yes, sir. The men moved in perfect tandem, as if they had become my faithful little soldiers. How much money is that? These mounted soldiers suddenly delivered me a tasty bundle of income. Wearing a smile of satisfaction, I became emotional at the beautiful comradeship of these men stripping each other. Kyre, where did these horses come from? Did you finally wake up? You must have been very tired from the way you suddenly collapsed. I drove the rattling carriage, heading back to the village. The road was pretty clear, so even without Hans, the village was getting closer. After waking up from the sleep spell, Hans was alarmed by the sight of the weapons in the back and the string of horses trailing behind us. Kyre, where did those bandits go? And these horses? Oh, those guys. Turned out they weren't bandits, but honest and pious men of charity. After telling them the story of the poor Luna village, they gave us their horses as well as their weapons and even the clothes on their back. I couldn't believe there would be such people in this heartless world. Is that true? Hans, have you ever seen me tell a lie? If they really were bandits, do you think we would be able to return to the village completely unharmed? That may be the case, but I see the village. Already, while Hans was sleeping, I cast Lighten on the carriage and sped across the plains along with the horses. I didn't want to grapple with monsters late in the night after the sun had set. Hans and Kyre have returned. Because most of the villagers had 20/20 hawk vision, the ones on lookout duty saw us from afar and loudly greeted us. Hans, I told you, right? Until the merchants come, don't say a word. All right, got it. The goods on the carriage alone were more than enough for the villagers to rejoice. When the Rubis merchants arrived tomorrow, that joy would be multiplied manifold. Shall we enjoy a proper meal today? More than anything, I was eagerly anticipating Cecil's dinner. We had acquired all sorts of seasonings and kitchen supplies at the castle. After all, Dad, Kang Hyuk. The gate to the village opened and Darren, who had been itching for our return, came running over. Behind him, the hopeful villagers appeared one by one. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Shall we hold a tuna party today? It was the second day after returning to the village. 20 sturdy horses and the small gifts loaded in the carriage had sent the village into a festive mood. Because they had been living in such poverty, they were deeply moved even by small gifts. Today was the day the merchants would arrive. They should have left the castle sometime yesterday, so Jameer would come with the goods this afternoon at the latest. The chief will probably lose it, right? The chief was unable to hide his shock after hearing that we had only paid the taxes without being able to buy the potions, and then we'd bought the horses. If the rumor I heard was to be believed, the sound of sighing flowing endlessly like music could be heard from outside his house. Let's earn big time and let Jameer get the holy water. He looked like a merchant who knew how to honor a favor. So even if I'm not there, he'll look after the village. For that to happen, I needed to properly fish up a bunch of mater today. My mana is charged up. The rest is figuring out how I should deal with the sea monsters and safely transport the tuna. The fishing spot was around 1 kilometer away from the beach. Even now, the tuna that were leaving for a long journey on their migration cycle were flopping out of the water, taunting me. These tuna, which only visited the waters in front of the village for 3 months out of the year, were apparently at their prime right now. There they come. While I was watching the sea, thinking hard about the school of tuna, I saw a group of people approaching from far away. The goods I had ordered were enough for the villagers to live like kings for a year. There were at least 100 carriages because of all the grain. All those carriages were appearing in a line on the horizon. Kia, sure is worthwhile to work up a sweat. I'm not even envious of the platinum car Master gave me. I had only lived a few months in my Master's home continent, but the thought that I had done something huge for someone else with a little exertion made me proud. In Korea, I was just a kid who could study well, but here, I was a big shot in charge of a whole village. Gong, gong, gong. As someone is coming. Everyone come here. They must have spotted the carriages from the village lookout tower, because a noisy bell began to ring and the villagers moved frantically. Only monsters would come looking for Luna Village. Unbeknownst to them, welcome guests were coming for their sakes. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. What's all this? Wow, pigs and cows. Is that all wheat? This is good quality leather armor. As if a market was set up, all the villagers gathered outside. Dozens of tough-looking mercenaries and merchants were also there, but the villagers were completely occupied, feasting their eyes on the enormous pile of goods that they'd never seen before. They had probably never even seen such an enormous amount in their lives. Our village only has potatoes and barley to trade. We do have a few horses, but they're not ours. Unable to tear his eyes from the various good quality goods in front of Jameer, the toothless chief was thinking fast. He was probably agonizing currently about what he should buy with a few bags of potatoes. So you've come, Jameer Nim. Where were you coming so late? Jameer, who was making a difficult face at the chief and the villagers' hungry gazes, was delighted to see me. He might be a manager of a big merchant group, but it must have burdened him to acquire goods on a tab. I can trust the quality of the goods, right? Young Kyer, your family's motto was honesty, wasn't it? Yes, that's correct. Jameer asked about the Kang family motto with a joking glint in his eye. Our merchant group's business motto is to trade only with the honest. I believe in your conscience. Well, my conscience. Even I couldn't trust my own lawless conscience sometimes. Jameer, who boldly stated that he trusted my conscience, was truly not an easy opponent. Kyer, do you know these people? Asked the chief, looking at me with surprise as I spoke naturally with the merchant group's leader. The goods will be granted every time I get a mater. Jameer shoved a wedge in the contract. Of course, but if you're satisfied, you'll give us an extra bonus, right? Jameer had trusted me and taken quite the risk. He was the first person to invest in me in the Kalian continent. Those who do not betray our trust will always be top customers of our Rubis merchant group. There was no need to say much. Then shall we go check the goods? Did you already catch them? Stammered Jameer, startled by my words. Shouldn't you know that a fish is all about freshness if you're a merchant? That's true, but let's head to the back of the village. I'm in a good mood, so I'll catch them real quick for you. What are you talking about right now? What will be granted and what's getting passed over? The chief was wearing an expression that said he was going crazy with curiosity. Behind him, only Hans was following the situation and nodding. Let us go. In any case, it was impossible to catch Mater without using magic. Moreover, I would have to use the peak of the offensive fourth circle spells today, so there was no way to keep the villagers in the dark. Wait, before that, there's a respected person who wants to meet you. Excuse me? A respected person who wants to meet me. Respected person? There weren't many people Jameer would refer to with such honorifics, and there wasn't anyone among them who would come looking for me. Open the carriage door. Yes, manager. Jameer's assistant, Terry-san, responded energetically and ran to one of the carriages. Who is the person receiving such respect from the merchants? My curiosity was reaching its climax. It was comparable to the amount of curiosity the chief must be feeling. We have arrived. Please exit. Kerchunk. Terry-san opened the carriage door with a careful pose. Thank you. A woman? A clear, pleasant voice came from within the carriage. Then, a white leather shoe stepped onto the carriage's foothold. Ah! The sight of the woman descending from the foothold as sunlight shone down on her shocked me to the core. Aramis. It was her. Surprisingly enough, the person who had followed Jameer to Luna Village was Aramis, the apprentice priestess of the goddess of mercy, Naren. I thank the god of fate, Romero, for allowing us to meet again. Everything was connected to the gods here on the Kalian continent. Aramis approached me and greeted me with an elegant and dignified movement, like a noble woman. It is an honor for me as well to see you again. Seriously, what is going on? Wanting to see me, Aramis had followed the merchants all this way. This woman, who looked holy enough to ride a unicorn in a parade of animal friends, was smiling widely at me. My heart, why are you racing like this? Just looking at Aramis' holy beauty made my heart grow warm. My heart was busy pumping away like a senseless idiot. Ugh, gods above. For, for a priestess of Naren to come here. Sob, "O goddess of mercy, Naren." Thump, thump. While I was lost in confusion, all the villagers, including the chief, drew crosses and fell to their knees. F for them to react like this. The sight of her had inspired so much emotion that the villagers were sobbing as they busily drew crosses. I apologize, and I love you all. For you, her faithful servants, Naranim is crying tears of joy right now. Upon seeing the devotion of the simple villagers towards the goddess of mercy, jewel-like tears that sparkled like the sun fell from Aramis' eyes. It wasn't just the villagers, but also the merchants and mercenaries who were making positions of devotion. So this is true faith. A servant who understood the heart of God and the lambs who longed for God. Seeing the huge contrast with the corrupt religions tainted by greed in the 21st century made me emotional. Why did you come with Aramis, Nim? Until now, no priest had ever come here. But now, a passionate meeting was unfolding between the villagers who held God in their hearts and a priestess of Naren. Jameer was quietly watching with a satisfied expression. Turning to him, I surreptitiously asked him what was going on. Didn't you tell me to get potions? No. What do potions have to do with the priestess? In the end, she's just an apprentice priestess, I retorted, falling back on the common sense I knew. You didn't know? That Aramis Nim here is the one who makes the potions of the Naren temple. No wonder there's such a halo around her. Kyre, consider yourself very lucky. From what I can see, Aramis Nim is the person possessing the greatest holy power amongst the current holy figures. If someone like her came this far because she wanted to see you, then your path forward will be filled with the blessing of God, Jameer said, looking at me enviously. Ahem, I'm quite a lucky person, it's true. I didn't feel like being modest. The goddess Aramis was caressing God's lambs with a hand filled with blessings. A part of my chest grew warm at the thought that she had come to see me. A mobile general hospital. Perfect. It wasn't a bad thing to know a few holy ones and priests who could cure most diseases with holy power. Moreover, if they were female priests that were this beautiful, I would welcome them with both hands. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You see the tuna, mater, over there? I do see them, but how you plan on catching them without a ship? The burly mercenaries lined the 2.5-meter long, 1-meter wide magic refrigerators neatly on the beach. Then the villagers, merchants, Aramis, and mercenaries followed my finger and looked at the tuna that were flopping out of the water as they swam through the ocean. It doesn't matter how I catch them, right? Right. But how will you do that? Oh, you'll find out when you see. I didn't really want to boast about my skills, but it couldn't be helped anymore. Kyre, why did you agree to such a difficult thing? Having heard the gist of the previous conversations, the chief was looking at me with a regretful gaze. No matter how hard he thought of it, it would be impossible for this white-haired chief, no, everyone here, to see the solution I had in mind. Aramis, don't smile at me like that. Only one person was different. As if knowing something, Aramis was wearing a mysterious smile and gazing at me with glittering eyes. Do not disappoint me. Unable to figure out the answer, no matter how much he racked his brains, Jameer's expression hardened. Was he always getting deceived? But, well, even I had to admit that I wouldn't believe a person like me. Kyre, Hugh quickly apologized. If you do something wrong, Han stopped mid-approach. Fly. Gathering mana with a breath, the mana arose from my body. With the incantation I had memorized, my body lifted lightly into the air. Mage. Kyre is a mage. How can this be? As I flew on the wind towards the ocean, the scene on the ground erupted into chaos. Anyone who wasn't surprised by the truth that the ordinary person who had lived amongst them was a mage would be a druggie addicted to tranquilizers. Cuckoo, look forward to it, everyone. I'll show you a real lightning show today. It was for this exhilaration that one lived as a mage. I had absolutely no desire to learn magic and eke out an ordinary, boring life. Life was about living well if you had the fortune, and vice versa. I was a true man of culture who knew how to enjoy life. Ooh ha ha ha. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. To think he was a mage? From the moment they first met, he knew with his merchant's intuition that Kyre was no ordinary man. From his unordinary appearance that couldn't possibly come from small territory's backcountry village, to his unbridled, natural actions that resembled a noble family's air and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. There was more to the young man than it seemed. On top of that, he even had the ability to understand and utilize human psychology at a level that outshone merchants. The black-haired young man, named Kyre, was more than enough to awe Jameer, someone who would one day become the next head of the Rubis merchants. But that person, that young man, was a mage, using flying magic that naturally is only possible if one is a master at the fourth circle. You're telling me he has conquered the fourth circle at his age? Before becoming a merchant, Jameer had dreamt of becoming a mage. His fate with magic ended as a mere second circle assistant mage in the end, but Jameer was well aware that ascending to the fourth circle before even reaching 20 years of age was a feat that would shake the annals of magic history. What in the world is your identity, Kyre? Delighting in everyone's astonished gazes, Kyre had already reached the part of the ocean where Mater were flopping and swimming. His hand were drawing a formula in the air. Lightning wave. Flash. BZZZZZT. Whoa. It's magic. The simple villagers, who were feasting their eyes on the sight of fourth circle magic for the first time in their lives, cheered with their mouths open in astonishment. Impressive. It took a lot to surprise him, but even Jameer could not help but open his mouth and praise Kyre. The boy was casting the strongest fourth circle attack magic, while simultaneously using fly. With that level of perfect mana control, it was enough to believe that Kyre wasn't a mage of the fourth circle, but a master of the fifth circle. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Struck by the powerful lightning shock, a mound of tuna flopped belly up and floated to the surface of the water. 1, 2. Hoo-hoo, 15 of them in one go. This is awesome. As expected of the specialty of the AoE fourth circle lightning wave, the tuna were shocked to high heaven. It wasn't just a tuna, either. From regular fish the size of people to thousands of miscellaneous fishes, the surface of the water was littered with them. Now, the problem is dragging them back. I wouldn't break my back like last time, when I struggled so much to catch a tuna for the first time. If you didn't learn and grow, you couldn't call yourself a human, lord of all creatures. You'd be no better than a monkey. I have around half of my mana left, as expected from the strongest of the fourth circle offensive spells. Controlling my mana while maintaining fly wasn't as easy as I thought. Any other fourth circle mage would have had their hands full just controlling the mana for fly. The next spell is Wind Fan. Next up was the second circle spell, Wind Fan. It was a low circle spell, but dragging the tuna 1 kilometer to the beach was no easy matter. Luckily, the ocean was at high tide, so this spell was worth a try. Wind Fan. In order to catch the tuna, I had racked my brain to combine these spells. Because I had memorized it beforehand, the spell was cast with just an incantation. Whoosh! Before the tuna could float away, a gust of wind gathered them to one side. Then, the tuna and the school of unconscious fishes were pushed according to my will towards the beach. Perfect! I really am a genius. Cuckoo. Who would think to catch a huge tuna without a single boat? Having become the captain of a one-man fishing vessel, I was once again overjoyed by the endless versatility of magic. Today, I'll give everyone here a memory they'll never forget. Festival. We're going to have a festival. Just like how a person couldn't just live on rice alone, events like festivals were absolute necessities to break up the boredom of daily life. That was even more applicable for these villagers, who had never had a proper taste of life's joys ever since they were born. I wanted to grant them a memory they would never forget, even on their deathbed. But what's this energy? While I was anticipating a festival and happily dragging along the tuna, I suddenly felt an uncomfortable energy. Those are. Even as I pushed the school of tuna and fish nicely along, decently sized fish kept disappearing into the ocean, leaving clouds of blood floating to the surface. Underneath swam black silhouettes. They were definitely those sea monsters I had only heard about. Damn it, Duffwisties. Using 21st century words frequently uttered by kids when they encountered an unexpected situation, I felt my mood tanking. I had caught these fish with difficulty, but these sea monsters were stealing my catch without breaking a sweat. Because of these guys, I felt like I could finally understand how the villagers must feel as they looked straight at the fish swimming in the ocean without being able to do a thing. Arf! How frustrating. After regular fish disappeared one by one, even one of the decently sized tuna sank down into the depths. But there was no way to attack the culprits. Consecutive use of magic had dropped my mana to just a third left. If I tried casting magic to get rid of the monsters, I would most certainly end up dropping from the air like a puppet with its strings cut. Gods above, having no conscience. If it's this hard to do something nice for once, who would ever throw coins into the charity pot? There was still 500 meters until I reached the beach. While I slowly pushed everything over, the tuna would be devoured without even leaving a bone behind. I stared into the sky as I let loose my resentment towards the gods ruling this world. Paia. As if responding to my earnest complaint, a holy energy suddenly spread over the waves. A divine blessing. Oh, the power of purification from Naranim's hand. Hearing surprised cries from the beach, I turned my head. And then I saw it. The sight of a woman raising both hands in earnest prayer. Aramis. She looked like an angel bringing peace on earth. Even from far away, I could see it very clearly. A sacred aura was flowing from her body like the brilliance of the sun's rays. Kayak. As the holy energy washed over the sea, the monsters who were enjoying the free buffet shrieked as they suddenly disappeared. So this is the power of God. This was yet another level of difference from the sight of the shamans on Earth who lit incense and waved their fans. I was able to see why the people here believed in the gods so earnestly. But why do I keep thinking of her? The pretty Yurin was waiting for me on Earth, but my head was filled with Aramis' beautiful figure and holy face. That was definitely the fault of hormones. The hormones of a male panther who hadn't yet found his match. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The mater are coming over. It's fish. Fish. To exaggerate, just like how the illegitimate Sun Hong Gildong couldn't call his father father and his brother brother, the villagers of Luna Village could not call a fish a fish. The villagers had only been able to taste the unlucky fish that were pushed ashore during stormy weathers. They were currently busy losing their wits at the sight of all the mater and the thousands of fishes that were floating towards them. Tien, Hong Gildong is a fictional illegitimate son of a minister. His story is the Korean version of Robin Hood. Mercenaries quickly pick out the mater. Terry-san slice their necks and drain the blood. The life of a mater is its freshness. Jameer knew very well that it was no time to sit around cheering. He rallied the blankly staring mercenaries and merchants under his employment. They're all top quality without a single scratch. At the very least, I can get 200 gold per fish. If the mater were caught at this speed, the merchant group could secure a huge profit. If that happened, the merchant group that was currently struggling because of mater would most certainly put even more importance on Jameer. Kyre, thank you. The eccentric young man, Kyre, whose identity was unknown. Ha 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 ha. Delighted for whatever reason, he was laughing energetically as he soared freely in the sky with Fly. Chapter 14, Fly with Her. Oh dear, my joints. Thanks to the holy blessing, the sea monsters didn't appear again. After recharging myself again with my mana breathing technique, I went mater hunting again. At some point, I began to falter, and as mana left my body, my stamina was worn down. Flop. As soon as I brought the last of the captured tuna to the beach, I collapsed to the ground. I'm gonna die. Any more than this, and I'll die. I couldn't even remember how many I caught anymore. After all, bolstered by their cheers, I had cast magic after magic like some valiant hero. As their cheers amplified, my mana and stamina had gone down little by little, and the 100 or so magic refrigerators Jameer brought were being swiftly transported to the beach by carriage. How regretful. It would have been better if you had caught just a few more. Holy, just take a look at this guy. There was a saying that a human's greed had no limits, and that statement applied directly to Jameer. Instead of worrying about me, who'd been beaten down by manual labor, he was sighing in regret about the tuna that was still flopping about in the ocean. That was because those tuna were piles of money waiting to be captured by a single move of mine. If I were him, I want to move without rest like a machine too. He's not even giving me an energy drink. Sue me. Even breathing was arduous right now. The sun, as bright red as a pomegranate, had sunk low into the ocean, and my sweaty body was doused in a satisfying sense of fatigue. At that moment, I heard Aramis' lovely voice behind me. Recovery. Shalalala. Whoa. A cool energy fell onto my whole body like gently falling snowflakes. Although my body had felt so fatigued that it was a bother to even move my head, my vitality suddenly began to surge up. Score. Was this the taste of a top-grade fatigue recovery drug? I felt so energetic again that I felt as if a night hunt was possible. You've worked hard, Aramis said with full sincerity, even though I hadn't worked for Aramis' sake. At those words, even all my accumulated stress flew away. So this is the power of a priestess. It felt as if there would be nothing more to envy as long as you had one well-raised priestess by your side. No matter how much you ran around, with just one recovery, you would be restored to perfect condition again. You wouldn't even fear a 100-man Energizer Bunny army. Kyrnim, you seem like a very hard-working person. You work as if there's no tomorrow. The beach was currently a battlefield because besides the prized mater, the rest of the catch was the villagers' share. Whether it was mater or regular fish, they were all valuable consumables once dried in the sun, so the starved villagers were busy gathering all the fish. As I was watching them, Aramis spoke from behind me. Me? She had it completely wrong. The reason why I poured my blood, sweat, and tears today wasn't because there was no tomorrow, but because I was trying to finish something I was going to do anyway in one go. This was something I would have had to do anyway. When it's time to do something, do it thoroughly. And when it's time to play, play thoroughly. That was my motto. A person should live to the fullest until the day breathe their last. After all, it's very admirable to know God's sentiment so well, though even priests cannot see through him. Kyrnim, I'm sure that you are an emissary delivered unto us from God. Voot? That's not right. As if I could be some kind of God's emissary. It's just that I knew quite a few things from religions in the 21st century and flapped my mouth a little that one time. All things are a projection of your heart. That saying is something I shall never, ever forget. Kyrnim, Aramis said, her voice sweet to the ear. My physical fatigue was gone, but suddenly I felt a wave of sleepiness. For a moment, I thought maybe the kind-looking and kind-spirited sister from next door was singing me a lullaby. A great monk, one Hyo. How else could I have been able to deliver such an immortal saying? I'm sleepy. I just want to take a nice long nap. Before I knew it, the sun had set and stars began to sparkle one by one in the sky. I had the feeling that tonight would be a night to remember. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Here, here. Please eat to your heart's content. Ahaha. I never knew such a happy day would come in my life. Our brother Kyr is the Hyung I look up to most in the world. You guys, you're done for if you call him pervert panties bro in the future. This brat. Darren would bring that up every time I was about to forget about it. Charcoal fires were scattered here and there, with skewered boar and mater, which only nobles could eat, roasting on spits. Thanks to Jameer, who brought quite a lot of the beer I had ordered, the villagers, mercenaries, and merchants were all excitedly eating and drinking at the feast. Kia, I never even imagined a day would come when I could eat mater till I burst. Eat, eat, eat lots. There's no knowing when such a day will come again. After all, even after reserving the best stuff, there were still tons of mater. Since all 100 or so magic refrigerators that Jameer had brought were filled to the brim, there was nothing one could do but to throw a large-scale mater party. With red pepper sauce, soy sauce, wasabi arg as sushi. Roasted tuna dripping with fat wasn't bad either, but sushi and sashimi suited my taste better. Gulp gulp. What soothed my regret while eating the omega-3 rich grilled tuna was the taste of the refreshing beer. The words "so good it'll bring you to tears" were perfect for such an occasion. Kyr, I'm able to eat as much mater as I want for the first time in a while thanks to you. I'm truly grateful. His face reddened with a blush of alcohol. Jameer thanked me. If you're thankful, give me money. You've played the role of a corrupt captain all the way until now, geez. Even knowing that this was an insanely profitable matter, I still couldn't forget Jameer's evil disposition as he looked at me like a wicked captain. Kyr, it seems that you truly have a special power. A strange power that brings joy to those next to you. It wasn't to the level of admiration, but the look in Jameer's eyes was one that said I could be of use to him. He didn't even hide it. But isn't it about time to settle the calculation? Oh, I wonder just how much I earned today. We'd agreed on 50 gold pieces per fish. I caught roughly 100 top-grade tuna. I calculated that I'd get 5,000 gold as my payment at the very least. Our fortune this time was truly great. The month of the Sapphire Festival is upon us, and the mater have been nigh uncatchable. It's difficult to chance upon a situation so intensely tuned to the law of supply and demand. Rather than making the calculation, Jameer just kept rambling on. If other magicians were as flexible as you, mater hunting wouldn't be this hard, but as soon as they become fourth circle mages, they become so proud and don't ever do dangerous or difficult work anymore. Jameer went on a monologue filled with either regret or rage. According to him, once you entered the fourth circle, you could live a cushy life as a mage in service of royalty or territory. I wouldn't do this either if I were them. Mater hunting was exactly the embodiment of the 3DS, difficult, dangerous, and dirty. It was pretty easy to catch them if you were a fifth circle mage, but what kind of fifth circle mage would go do such a thing, as if they had nothing better to do? Mages who would be pretty much the top of the food chain in Korea and enjoyed positions of money and honor wouldn't go out of their way to catch smelly fish. On top of that, living amongst the fish were also monsters that could make a fifth circle mage fearful. If it were you, sir, would you want to catch fish as a fourth circle mage? That is, I wouldn't either. Who would become a mage only to catch fish? Also, if others knew that you did physical labor for money, your name would be scrubbed out of the list of mages in the magic tower. See, humans all have the same nature. Others wouldn't want to do something I didn't want to do. Of course, there were occasionally folks who were born with a spirit of sacrifice or people with unique personalities who led by example. Kyre, but which magic tower do you belong to? To be a fourth circle mage at your age, the rumors about you would have surely shaken the continent. Jameer looked at me suspiciously. You'll get hurt if you know, dude. I am on a secret mission. I'd just be seen as a lunatic if I said I came from another world. With a nod to my statement that it was a secret mission, Jameer began pulling out the numbers. The total amount for 106 Mater is 5,300 gold. The cost for the goods you requested, 752 gold. The net payment is 4,548 gold. Boohoo for 1,548 gold. As expected, it was a respectable sum of about 5,000. Compared to the effort it took, it couldn't be anything but an enormous amount. Jameer Nim, is it maybe possible to acquire territory? Territory? Did you just say territory? Yes. For the size, a length of about 3 to 4 days on horseback would be nice. Are you a noble? Asked Jameer carefully. No, I'm not. What? But to speak of a territory. Jameer had a puzzled look on his face. Just like in fantasy novels, I guess you can only get a territory if you receive a noble peerage. I knew that, but I still needed to confirm it. To be fair, it doesn't seem like an impossible matter for you. Once one becomes a fifth circle mage, one can receive a baron title from a decent kingdom. However, a noble granted a peerage and a noble governing a territory is different. Becoming a lord of the territory is a restricted matter, and the inheritance of property isn't something that a king or even emperor can meddle with at will. Only in cases of betrayal or long-standing unpaid taxes would the ownership of a territory move hands. Oh, being a mage is really the best. Of course, there are sometimes those among the nobles who sell their territories due to taxes or immense debt. Since those are baronies, they're small territories. Even so, it would cost around 300,000 to 500,000 gold. It's not as much as I thought. Not as much. At my light remark, Jameer's eyes widened in surprise. Kang Hyuk, wouldn't give up at such a paltry amount. On Earth, I was like a crown prince who had used an unlimited card. 300,000 or 500,000, such a sum didn't even enter my ears. Anyway, Jameer, I have a request. A request. Unable to recover from the shock my words had delivered him, Jameer faced me. This is something I've learned from roughly assessing the surroundings, but I don't think there is anywhere with as many good aspects as Luna Village. The sea is swimming with schools of Mater. Valuable mushrooms and forageables like sharif and rooty mushrooms can be found all over the mountain, and the people live simple, honest lives. If this place was developed well, wouldn't it be a great help to the Rubis merchants? Indeed, I've also never seen a village with such good conditions. Only, the problem is that the Tsar Mountains are too close. And the demon beasts. Demon beast? It wasn't even that strong. The demon beast hide I tossed into some shade on the cliff was drying nicely. Jameer harbored fear towards such a scary demon beast. I have heard they are tricky. If there are many people or someone skilled, they don't attack often, but they'll bleed a person weaker than themselves dry. If we were to make use of a village like this among creatures like that, like a proper merchant, Jameer considered every possible avenue of opportunity. At least 10 minutes passed as he thought. However, it was clear to me, I had to secure Luna Village a chance for prosperity. I owed it to them for my life. Would you be able to protect this village for just 5 years? 5 years. We would need 2 Grade 1 mercenaries who can use Aurablade and at least 20 Grade 2 mercenaries. I think the village wall would also need repair, and to become a village large enough to attract merchants to reside there like before, it would cost at least 10,000 gold. 10,000 gold? That's pretty expensive. Of course, that doesn't include the price of priests or the territory taxes. Looking at Jameer's expression, It didn't seem like he was lying. It's not even a city, but I guess accelerating the growth of a single village costs a considerable amount. In a short span of time, Jameer was able to calculate costs that I couldn't even imagine. He was more than worth cooperating with. I don't have enough money. Since that's the case, now that the cat was out of the bag about me being a mage, I couldn't stay here anymore. The villagers were already treating me with such caution. Not only that, but if word got out to the territory castle, things would become a pain. Jameer, would you maybe also purchase Demon Beast Hide? Demon Beast Hide? Of course. If not for its scarcity, Demon Beast Hide is a top priority item that a merchant would shell out jewels for to acquire. Oh, it's good I left it to dry. You wouldn't happen to have a Demon Beast Hide, would you? Exclaimed Jameer in surprise, not even paying attention to his surroundings. What do you call a creature about 3 meters in size, with golden stripes and a face like a panther, and fangs the size of your fist? Tavelager. That sounds like a Tavelager, the most valuable leather, even among demons. On top of that, it's a clean hide with barely any injuries. How much would that be? Without mentioning that I had one, I fired up Jameer's insides. So you're saying it's a top good that a merchant would bring jewels to buy? Whoa, my mind was spinning with the possibilities. For something like that, you could definitely get at least 30,000 gold. Holy hell, 30,000. Considering how easy it had been to catch the Tavelager, it was like digging up a hole where mud had buried its bone and finding a golden ring. An insane amount of money, 30,000 gold, landed into my lap. Should I just drop everything and become a demon beast hunter? In Callian Continent, the realm of my master, opportunities to get rich in one fell swoop could be found here and there. To those who had the skill, it was like a treasure-filled El Dorado. You wouldn't happen to have, swallowing his saliva, Jameer's gaze was just like when he had played the role of a vicious captain. 50,000. It's something I caught with my life on the line. So what a mere 30,000? Holy, so was true. Ugh, my goodness. Lord Almighty, a Tavelager's hide. He was happier than when he got the mater. What? Should I have raised the price a bit more? Looking at the guy clasping his hands together and praising the gods, I had the feeling that I somehow took a loss. 50,000. All right, I shall buy the Tavelager hide at 50,000. Man, you probably would have bought it for 100,000. Jameer's true thoughts soon came to light. I will give you 40,000 of that gold. Only, during a time span of 10 years, please restore this village to its former status. No, please nurture it into a village even bigger than before. You're impressive for such a young person. With 40,000 gold, you could live several lifetimes comfortably. Of course, that was possible too, but my dream wasn't so trifling. I will bring it right away, I said. It was a law that you should repay your debts properly. Now, I feel refreshed. For me, I couldn't be relieved unless I paid the debts I owed. And when that debt was a debt of life, which couldn't be calculated in price, it was even more important. Grave. Master. Of course, my resentment steadily deepened towards the master who put me in this crappy position. My determination to return to Earth once I become an 8th Circle Archmage and burn that cheating, nasty master's tower to the ground solidified. Aramis. The last I'd seen of her, she had been treating the ill villagers and playing with the children. At some point, the priestess Aramis had climbed up the cliff, my playground, without any fear. Having climbed up to clear her head from alcohol and see the ocean, she was standing and gazing at the waves. Emanating sacred aura, her white robe and long hair gently fluttered in the wind as she gazed upon the night ocean, which reflected the densely clustered stars and moon. My previously calm heart suddenly began to thump erratically. How mysterious! My chest warmed at the sight of the noble priestess, who was somehow able to draw people's hearts. How can life born of God be explained? The entirety of the stars, the moon, the sea, and all life combining to make this picture. How can it be explained? Whoa, is she asking me that? Aramis asked me such an abstract question, perhaps because she thought I was a high-level philosopher thanks to the one saying, all things are a reflection of your heart. Beautiful things are beautiful, and ugly things are ugly. Is not the greater problem the mind, which goes beyond that and tries to differentiate beauty, inviting more thoughts about the ugly? Beautiful things are beautiful. Ugly things are ugly. So it is. Master Sankyol, I apologize. TL. Master Sankyol was a key figure in Korean Buddhism. I totally ripped off his famous saying, mountain is mountain, water is water. If a beautiful woman asked you something and you couldn't say a single coherent thing, then that meant your preschool education was lacking. Didn't someone say that in a book? That he had learned everything at preschool. Everything I see right now, the sky and the sea, are beautiful. Everything also you, Chironym. Ah, turning her head naturally in front of the sea, Aramis suddenly told me I was beautiful too. Is she flirting with me right now? Is she? This was a puzzling hot potato of a situation. Even though men are animals that wouldn't say no to 10 beauties, to hear such words from such a forward woman, particularly from a priestess sister of the faith who was looking at me with sparkling eyes, I really didn't know how to interpret the situation. I heard it from others, that even though you are a mage, you conceal your power and you don't shirk dangerous work for the sake of the villagers who have landed in difficult times. To such a noble spirit of sacrifice, I, a priestess of the goddess of mercy, express my utmost admiration. From beautiful to admiration, such words of praise enter my ears. And no, that is, upon getting covered in false filigree, I felt pressured. I knew I had done something good, but I didn't think it was to this degree. And it wasn't even given for free, but in payment for saving my life. In the future, with all of God's grace, until I cross the Lute River into the afterlife, I, Aramis, swear upon God's name that I will aid all of Chironimm's requests, no matter what they shall be. Oh, how can she say such a thing? To say such a thing means. Who knows what was going on in her head, but she suddenly swore her aid to me. I couldn't help but gulp down my saliva. This beauty of legendary proportions, Aramis, promised to fulfill my every request. Oh man, should I just take this godsend and run? I felt a little sorry about my parents and friends on Earth, not to mention Yeren, but to leave such a beautiful woman when she liked me too was just ridiculous. Moreover, this place was a land where living was simple as long as you had the skills. The conflict in my heart eased up. No, I can't. She's still a priestess of God. I was struggling in the valley of conflict, but no matter how you sliced it, Aramis was a sacred priestess in service of God. The world is large, and there are many beauties. I was, after all, still legally a minor who couldn't be called a full-fledged adult. For the sake of bigger dreams, I swallowed my regret. I'm grateful for the intent, but I'm sorry. In any case, Aramis was sworn to God. Upon hearing my words, Aramis bowed her head slightly and expressed her understanding. I'm the one who is grateful. Ah, this fragrance. As she faced me and slightly bowed, Aramis' refreshing fragrance drifted towards me on the night wind. It had a mysteriously addictive quality that you could never forget. The seasons had flowed into fall, but somehow she radiated the smell of spring flowers. You probably would never need Febreze if you live with Aramis. But what are you doing in such a dangerous place? I suddenly wanted to see the ocean. A view of the ocean from high up rather than at sea level. Ho ho, you may not believe me, but when I was young, I dreamed of becoming a Sky Knight. Sky Knight? What the heck is that? To ride a wyvern and be a Sky Knight of the blue skies. On a night like this, I truly wanted to fly once, but wow. Ride a wyvern and be a knight of the blue skies. Damn, wyverns really exist, and you can even ride them. I never even heard about Sky Knights from my master or the villagers. As pure as she was, Aramis would never lie, so I couldn't help but believe it. For some reason, Aramis had given up on her childhood dream and had become a priestess. No matter how much of a servant of God she may be, currently, all I could see was a human being with her own wishes and dreams. Would you like to fly? I spontaneously asked her if she wanted to fly. Yes, truly. Aramis nodded her head as she looked above the waves crashing into the sky. Then I will fulfill that wish for just a moment. At my words, she turned her head and stared at me with her gray eyes. Then she slowly put out her hand, her eyelashes trembling slightly. Aramis' face steadily reddened. My hand quietly took hold of her warm hand. Then, please excuse me. As if embracing valuable pottery, I took her waist with one hand. Ah! As she fell into my arms, Aramis uttered a low cry. How can she be this thin? Her thin waist was like the waist of an ant. Even after taking hold with one hand, there was still a big gap on my arm. My heart raced, and her heart was running as fast as my own. Fly. I cast fly, which I had memorized. Today, I had cast fly magic so much that I should be tired of it, so the spell fell from my lips without a hitch. Chia. My body is floating. I had only cast the spell to the level of levitation, so as to avoid frightening Aramis. She cried out in surprise as her body floated up. Then Aramis' thin arms grasped my neck in fear. Welp, completely oblivious, she acted unconsciously. The flexible feeling of the beauty in my arms startled me completely awake. And Mommy, I sincerely called out my mother. Flying carefully above the cliffs, we crossed the sky and waves until we arrived above the ocean blue. Then, Aramis expressed her admiration by whispering into my ear with her delicate lips. It's beautiful, this moment. To me, you're more beautiful, I secretly remarked to myself. I put more strength into my arms as they held Aramis. And then this thought occurred to me. It's really good that I became a mage. Chapter 15, Showdown with Sky Knight. Are you leaving? H. Hans. It was 2 days after Aramis and Jameer's departure from the village. Having distributed the goods brought in by the merchants, the village was bursting with vitality. As for me, I had woken up before dawn. How did he know? My work here was done. I wanted to leave as suddenly as I had appeared, but as soon as I got up, Hans asked me if I was leaving. Haha, I'm thinking about going on a trip, I said, putting all my effort into acting like nothing was up and scratching my head. It was my first time actually saying goodbye to someone, so I felt pretty awkward about it. Only right to do so. You should travel while you're young. Thank you. If it weren't for you, this village would have been lost to history. This usually stoic man suddenly had a lot to say. This is some bread. Even Cecil. How did you know that I would leave? Who wouldn't know after seeing you lost in thought in front of all the food you usually like so much? Even a soulless log would have seen it. KEH. Because of food. I try to leave quietly, but I was caught red-handed because of food. The weather is still warm, so please eat the bread before the day ends. I've put egg in it, so it will go bad easily. The bread she handed me was made with egg, a white and soft flour bread, very unlike the daily ration of hard barley bread. At some point, Cecil had begun stuffing a small bag full of bread. TSK. Hans' broad smile and regretful expression, Cecil's sad expression, her face stiff even as she packed the bread. Only the thoughtless kid, Darren, was sleeping peacefully with a loose smile. This is why farewells make people sad. The intent to leave was different from the moment of departure. My heart felt like it had been pierced somewhere. My nose twinged, and the corners of my eyes began to sting. Kyre, we may only know your name, but every villager here has never thought of you as a stranger. No matter where your travels take you, if you become lonely, come back. Think of this place as your home. Hans looked at me as if I were his departing son. Yes, please don't worry. I will come back once my travels are finished. Please stay healthy until then, Hans. All right, you too. Make sure you eat well. Please be careful. Thank you for everything. Hans' voice dripped with emotion as he made his last request, and Cecil couldn't raise her head as she expressed her thanks. I'm the one who is thankful. Cecil, I'll bring a present for you next time, so please make me something delicious, all right? Yes, anytime. Please come back. Sob. Unable to suppress her emotions, Cecil's face ran with tears. Give my regards to Darren. Please tell him to become a cool man by the time his hyung returns. Got it. I'll be sure to tell him the pervert bro sends regards. The atmosphere suddenly turned weird thanks to Hans' joke. Then I'll be back. I won't see you out. There should be a horse tethered next to the village ramparts gate. So the villagers knew too. I wanted to leave without anyone knowing, but it turned out that people could see right through me. On the verge of tears, I opened the door with a strong push. With a whoosh, the autumn wind, which I couldn't feel until now, came blowing through the opening. Everyone stay well. The short but long time in Luna Village was something I cherished. There was no doubt that no matter how long my travels were in the continent, I would never forget my memories here. It all starts now. With that thought, I stepped over the threshold and left the house. At exactly that moment, the red morning sun dawned, as if God were giving me a small blessing on my journey to achieve my dreams and adventures. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Clip clop, clip clop. Horses look pretty easy to handle. In the movies, the main characters would handsomely ride horses and shoot guns or wield swords. But in reality, my butt burned every time it hit the saddle. Stop, you waste of food. The horse was galloping without a care for its owner's pain. Oh God, will I get hemorrhoids like this? Up until leaving the village, I had been so happy. There weren't that many opportunities to ride a horse in Korea. Only children of rich families would learn horseback riding. A pleb like me never had a chance to ride one. So, as a complete beginner with no knowledge of horses, I started riding at full speed. For a while, I rode as landmarks whooshed past us, and we rushed along the ground, all the while feeling every stride of the horse. But then, my thighs began to complain. Arg, this is why you need a license. Having gone out for a drive without a license, I was now facing a crisis, but I could only let my tears fall. I was feeling free in the wind, but in the end, the skin of my thighs was worn right off. Neighing with happiness as I grabbed the reins, the gray beast of a horse came to a stop. Ow, 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 ow. How many times does that make today? It's lucky that my mana pool was greater than the average mage and also recovered much faster, because otherwise I would have gone into mana exhaustion at the rate I was using heal. Heal, I muttered, putting my right hand on my bum and gently applying heal. BZZT. Though I turned my head, I wasn't a giraffe and couldn't see how injured my butt was, so I could only see the light of the magic. That's refreshing. It was good I learned magic. Otherwise, my butt would have turned into one giant callus. As expected, being a mage is the best. A refreshing and clean feeling flowed around my thighs and butt, and a strange sense of euphoria buzzed down my spine. I'm hungry, so shall we eat some bread? I left the village at the crack of dawn and boldly went on my way. After the road, well, it was basically just a dirt road covered in grass. Where should I go now? I probably should go into the castle, right? One of the few important teachings my grandfather had passed down to me was that if a person only did their homework but didn't review or truly study the material, it would be like going to the toilet and leaving a piece of toilet paper on your bum. I have to settle things with that administrator dude. Only then will he stop messing with the village. I had entrusted the village's safety and development, but this is something I had to take care of myself. Taking bread out of the bag, tied up on the saddle, I chewed my food. Strawberry jam or peanut cream would have been nice. It couldn't be compared to the rock-hard barley bread, but he was still a bit regretful. At least it's nice and soft. Having been made with milk drawn from one of the lactating cows Jameer had brought, as well as some egg, the bread had its own kind of sweetness. However, my mouth had been spoiled with all kinds of sweets and savory foods, so it hadn't gotten used to this world yet. Kia, the weather is great. Ripping into the bread and taking sips from a wooden flask, I gazed at the sky. There wasn't a single cloud in the autumn sky, and just looking at it refreshed my spirits. This sky without a single cloud, it's the same anywhere. But that one bird in the distance, it sure is coming this way fast. Is that really a bird? While I was enjoying the autumn sky, I spotted a bird way off in the distance. No, it wasn't a bird. It was a creature coming towards me with incredible speed. Archaeopteryx, I shouted in shock. The enormous bird was undoubtedly something I'd seen in dinosaur pictures and a Jurassic Period museum. It had been circling in the sky, but now it was shooting towards my direction on the ground. Mommy, a crisis occurred even before I could digest my bread. I have to use some kind of magic. Yua. My mind raced to find a fourth circle spell that was good against quickly moving targets. I would bring total shame to my family name if I turned into bird food like this without even leaving a single footprint on this world. Wind shield, rapidly drawing my mana all at once. A thick 5-meter barrier expanded in the air. I threw enough mana into it that it wouldn't break with one hit, even from an Archaeopteryx. I spear. It was a law that you couldn't just sit around and let yourself get killed. Using a complicated double cast, I summoned a sizable ice spear. Come, you shitty bird. The Archaeopteryx was already only 100 meters away. Flapping its huge wings and extending its mouth full of sharp teeth, it dropped towards me. Gulp. Thanks to this sudden lightning bolt from the sky, or rather, this sudden Archaeopteryx, my mood dropped like a stone from heaven to hell. I couldn't help but swallow hard. And then, in order to focus on the attack, I narrowed my eyes in concentration. Holy, what is that? While staring at the Archaeopteryx look-alike, I happened to see something strange. Pea panties? No, is that armor? I thought it was a wild animal, but clearly this was the work of man. Draped on the creature's body was armor made of silver and cloth. What the? It's a person. Then I saw it. At the moment the descending Archaeopteryx slightly turned its body, a person arrogantly standing atop the creature's neck while holding something like reins. Hush hush. The armored Archaeopteryx and man had appeared so suddenly, but then, coming just 10 meters from my head, the two abruptly turned and flew off into the direction they had come. Did I just get baited? After raising my tension to levels of visiting a graveyard at 1 a.m., the Archaeopteryx simply ignored me and went off like that. With speed belying its enormous size, The two had already disappeared high into the sky. Wait, could that be a sky knight? So that bird isn't an Archaeopteryx, but a wyvern. Sky knight, the career of dreams for Aramis when she was young. Now I understood. Ooh, to think there's an air force in this era. I knew wyverns existed, but I didn't know they would harness them and organize an air force. Woo, that's killer. Just the thought of it gave me shivers of excitement. When I was a kid, one of my dreams was to become an Air Force pilot. But sadly, I gave up on that after learning about their considerably selective physical requirements and the fact that you had to be on constant standby. This existence called a Sky Knight completely revived these long-lost thoughts. It wasn't important that a Sky Knight had just ridden a wyvern and put me in a dangerous spot. The only thing that occurred to me now was that I absolutely wanted to become a wyvern-riding Sky Knight. The only thing I've got is time, anyway. I've decided, let's raise a bird. In this world, you didn't even need a national examination or license for piloting. All you had to do was to move according to your passions. Hood. What's going on now? In the middle of daydreaming about myself flying like a cool Sky Knight, I suddenly heard urgent hoofbeats. Wonder where they're going? Coming around the curve of the mountain a kilometer away was a group of cavalry. At their head of the 50 or so mounted knights flew a flag. Who knew what got their panties in a bunch? But they were galloping fast across the plains. Why are these guys coming toward me again? After the wyvern came a troop of knights. Teach that guy, he's coming again. As if he'd been waiting for the cavalry, the wyvern and Sky Knight appeared once more from beyond the curve of the mountain. And no, it can't be, right? Surely they're not all coming just because of me. There was no reason, so I didn't think it was possible. But fulfilling an ominous foreboding was one of fate's nasty hobbies. Having sprinted with all their might, the cavalry came to a stop about 100 meters away from me. Armed to the teeth, as if prepared for a battle, the group gave off a grave aura as they stared me down. Are they looking for a fight right now? There was no knowing why they all came at me like this, but just reading the atmosphere, it was like they were ready for a fight. Isn't this just too much? No matter how cool of a magic swordsman I was, the other party's numbers simply couldn't be ignored. Moreover, looking at the energy they emanated, it wasn't like the rabble from before. These guys seemed like knights who could use Aura Blade. Maybe because of that one time, then I was struck with more ominous foreboding. The memory of the cavalry sent by the administrator to attack Hans and me floated through my thoughts like a silent movie. If the Lord found out, then the matter wouldn't just get ignored. That lying, corrupt administrator was making a complete fool of the Lord. These guys most likely had it in their head that I was some kind of chicken-hearted mage who had disregarded their Lord. I must be right. Damn it. The flag held by the group was the same one I had seen at the Lord's castle. 2 white horses drawn atop a black shield. Swoosh. 1 versus 50. No, you had to add a bird to that count as well. For someone like me who wasn't even a native Marine, it was too much. And then, as if to confirm the pain-in-the-ass reality unfolding before me, the Sky Knight's wyvern slowly landed with flapping wings between me and the cavalry. That's so big. Even while floating in the sky, I thought it was big, but looking at it from this distance, I could see how big the wyvern really was. Its thick limbs were stretched wide and covered by thick, gray hide. One wing seemed at least 10 meters long, and the body was the size of 10 cows. On top of that, it had red eyes the size of soccer balls, saw-like, sharp teeth, a beak as sturdy as iron, and black claws that looked like it could crush most things. Just looking at it made my legs tremble. How do I deal with this crisis? If it were normal nights, I could just use flight magic to book it, but the wyvern was staring at me with its huge eyes, so that was a no-go. Kill them all. But that was impossible too. Even if I drained all my mana, these guys weren't just your average soldier, but fully armored knights. It was still too much for me to go up against them all. And that wyvern was definitely a problem. You must be that impudent black mage. Be black mage? Me? The person sternly rebuking me, with eyes like shards of glass, peeking out of his helmet, was wearing not regular armor, but a combination of leather and silver metal so strange that it was weird to call it armor. It's the Lord. His voice seemed awfully familiar, but hearing it through the helmet, it was unmistakably the Lord of Fiori territory. I'm indeed a mage. However, I'm not a black mage, but a white mage who upholds the values of justice and truth. Ha ha ha. With an awkward laugh, I broke the ice. Laughable. You gave my territory's knights and soldiers a humiliation that can never be cleansed. You may be a mage of a magic tower, but in my territory, one must follow my law. to dirty the honor of my knights and soldiers by stealing their horses and armor. That sin, I shall be the one to deliver judgment. He's pretty hopping mad. Just like I feared, without knowing the complete picture, the Lord believed every word of the administrator's goonies, who had crawled back like beggars after getting a lesson from me. It was really disgusting. Everything was because of the Lord's failure to govern his territory, but he didn't recognize his own fault and not only scolded me, but wanted to kill me. For what exactly am I guilty? I didn't know how strong the Wyvern and Sky Knight were, but I didn't want to be taken for a crazy fool just like this. I am my own reckless lord throughout heaven and hell. Even if it was a sin worthy of death, I was going to live my way. Impertinent. You may be a mage, but you dare to spit ludicrous things with no hint of truth to the Lord himself. With no awareness for the fact that his words were the ludicrous ones, the Lord admonished me. A blue aura blade emanated from the thick, long sword he held. Well, ha 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 ha. You guys truly make me laugh. It's like a dog covered in poop, trash-talking a dog with a grain of rice on its face. If it was like this, it didn't matter what I said anymore. I was either going to die or faint. D-dog covered in poop? You bastard, yelled the knight. I could almost see the anger rising from his body. All right, let's just go around. Piece of cake. The numbers and the existence of the Wyvern were all against me, but I wasn't afraid. The moment I decided to give it my all, Wyvern flapped its wings powerfully into the air. Should I sneak attack him? This was the optimal time to attack, but I wasn't a dirty bastard. Whoosh. After a moment where the air seemed to flutter, the Wyvern lifted into the air with considerable speed. Let's start with the nuisances. The Wyvern was a problem, but I couldn't forget the 50 knights. Attack. Hood. The knights rushed forward in attack, as if they had wanted to do so even before the Lord raised his hand. Y'all are all screwed. A baseless sense of confidence sprouted in my chest. I fog. I had memorized a good chunk of the fourth circle spells every day without fail. This magic had a long mana drain time, and I was able to convert some of my mana reserves into cold fog. Dare you to catch me. With me at its center, the earth was blanketed in 10 to 20 meters of dense fog within seconds. With a thud, I dismounted. Go over there and play. Nay, I couldn't face the knights riding a horse I barely knew how to ride. I chased the horse off with a strong slap to the butt. Thursday, thud. Thursday, thud. Hood. The knights had narrowed the distance considerably. The dimly lit aura blades from their swords could be seen even through the fog. Oh, get a taste of this. The knights were heavily armored. If they had a mage, they wouldn't just blindly attack like this. But now they were surrounded by the wet ice fog. I raised both hands and smiled wickedly. Lightning Wave. Among the lightning spells, Lightning Wave was a magic born for AoE rather than single target damage. BZZZZZZZZZT. Dig. Air Shield. Was this how it felt to catch fish by throwing a high-voltage wire into a lake? After tossing out lightning magic, I used magic to dig into the ground. See ya. Casting the dig spell repeatedly, I didn't have any time to wave my hand goodbye. My body disappeared into the earth. Aor. Aya. Knee. As I dug into the ground, the gruesome cries of the knights and horses rang out behind me. Even a knight wielding Aura Blade couldn't do a thing. If you're ignorant, it's not bravery but stupidity. That was the lesson being carved into the knights' bodies right now. Flop. Is it almost over? Since I used lightning magic meant to cover a large area, it wasn't enough to kill them. But it was certainly enough to deliver a shocking taste of hell to the armored knights and horses. I could hear a wave of heavy thuds from the horses falling over onto the ground. The problem is that Wyvern. It would have been a pretty close call if the knights weren't mounted, but just attacked in groups of 10 with their swords. Thankfully, there were blockhead knights completely enamored by the idea that comrades should live together if they live and die together if they die. They probably got a significant shock to their hearts from getting caught in my net of spells and taking a lightning wave full on. Should I wait until my mana is recharged? I had used dig magic to burrow into the ground and air shield to secure the space, but after using fourth circle spells consecutively, my mana was cut to half. Magic had superior utility, but once you ran out of mana, you'd be screwed. Find him. He has to be near. Search thoroughly. Era? There are guys that can still move, huh? Maybe it was my mistake to underestimate knights who could use mana. I could hear quite a lot of footsteps above ground. The ground is disturbed here. He must be out of mana. Pierce the ground with aura blades. An ice fog deployed on open ground couldn't last long. Moreover, the ice magic had lost its cold properties due to lightning magic. I could hear the voices of knights who had discovered the signs of me digging into the ground. This is bad. I didn't know how they had escaped the spell, but it was surprising how fast the knights acted. Rock wall. If I sprang out like this, I was just going to become a hedgehog. I used an earth spell. Reumble. The earth above my head turned as sturdy as stone as it created a 2-meter-wide barrier in my surroundings. Hey, what is this? Interrupted from their preparations to attack, the surprised cries of the knights rang out. Heave-ho! Light shone into the space in the moment that the dirt disappeared, turning into stone. Holding my sword and hitting off the ground, I leapt onto the barrier created by the rock wall. Ha! You guys, here I am. As soon as I jumped up, I surveyed my surroundings. Unlike the majority of the collapsed knights, who were wearing armor blackened by lightning marks, and the horses, there were around 10 knights standing around completely fine. Their armor was only slightly singed. Magic armor. Now I understood the situation. There were clearly discernible magic circles drawn onto their armor. These knights were equipped with magic armor good enough to disrupt lightning magic diluted in power. They would have probably all croaked if I had used the 5th circle chain lightning. The more I thought about it, the more regretful I felt. While smacking my lips, I jumped off and landed onto the ground. To think he can even use a sword. One of the 10 or so knights surrounding me stammered out in surprise. I'm major in magic and minor in swordplay. Magic swordsman. As soon as someone mentioned magic swordsman, I saw the knights surrounding me flinch. Cookin', now do you see? But what to do? My mood today is really bad. If you bluff, you should bluff properly. My mana had fallen, so my condition wasn't that great, but I laughed with a wicked grin and pressured the knights. Damn it, because of that magic armor, they won't even feel something like 3rd circle magic. Inside, I was sweating, but I drew the rest of my mana and made a big, flashy aura blade. Arg! The stiffened knights let out groans. They may be knights, but that didn't mean they had 2 lives. Swoosh! While the knights were losing their fighting spirit, a faint sound so harrowing it made all my hairs stand up suddenly burrowed into my eardrums. Bam! Then something crashed into the boulder I had made with Rockwall. Bobby bam! What the hell is that? The thing that had fallen from the sky was a silver spear 2 meters long and the width of a child's arm. Still quivering from the force, it cut the magic-made, sturdy boulder like tofu and was lodged deeply in the rock. The Lord! I had forgotten about the Sky Knight. I hurriedly raised my head and inspected the sky. Holy! All knights, retreat to the back, commanded the Lord, his voice rich with imbued mana. The speechless knights who had been scarily surrounding me turned and fled without a single glance backwards, leaving only the sounds of their retreating footsteps. This isn't right, but it's not like I could call the fleeing knights back. Swoosh! Yoa! That bastard's crappy bird is. Bobby bam! I didn't even have time to look up. Scary spears were thudding into the ground. I ran towards the direction the knights had fled. Hey, I'm coming too. If all else fails, run away. That was a top stratagem imparted in the art of war, after all. Asterisk. Huff. These guys are fast. I put mana into my feet and ran, but the knights were just as fast. It was as if they didn't just train every day with the sword, but learned how to run away first. If this goes on, I'll just die while running away. About 700 to 800 meters in front of me, there was a sparse forest, but it definitely wouldn't be much help. That scamp's stupid bird is. As if riding a horse in the sky, the so-called Lord was freely manipulating the wyvern with reins. That bald chicken was getting control by a human just like that and putting its size to shame. If I could do as I wished, I would have roasted it up with a fireball. But the reality was, where should I run? Oh geez. The rest of my mana was almost depleted from running around. Any other 4th circle mage would have already flopped onto the ground with a please catch me sign on their face. Swoosh! As if he'd waited for me to stop moving, the Lord threw down another silver spear. It's a magic item. Busy running away, I hadn't noticed the silver spear's true identity. Now I could see that it was sparkling and resonating with mana. This guy. Fury bubbled and raged in my chest. Towards this bird and owner who were persecuting me for no good reason, I exuded murderous intent. Come, you piece of shit. Grasping my sword, I stared at the flying spear. Schwing. Filled with mana, The spear flew through the sky so fast that it was reasonable to call it a ray of light. I raised my sword towards such a spear. Now, just a few seconds after it had been thrown, the magic spear hurtled through space and neared me. Scraping together the last of my mana, I slashed my sword with all my might into the air. Clang! Ack! My sword rebounded off to who knows where, and my body, unable to resist the momentum of the swing, rolled onto the ground. I coughed out a lump of red blood as my chest strained with emotions. Defiance, charged with rage and bravado, made my blood boil. I will kill you, all of you. That so-called lord and his knights didn't even consider their own faults and simply went straight to attacking. To attack a single mage, these shameless knaves came attacking en masse. For the first time in my life, a sensation of bloodthirst dominated my mind. Rising from the ground, I drew a deep breath. My mana core was already completely depleted. The mana core that circulated through the upper, middle, and lower dungeons and was situated in my waist area was like a deflated balloon. I won't be the only one to go. You. Taking a deep breath, I sucked up the energy in my surroundings. Since my mana core was depleted, even if it was only for a second, I had to mobilize the mana breathing technique. If I overdid it even more here, my mana circle could even collapse. However, only one route was available to me now. I will kill you. As if to taunt me, the Wyvern and Lord were leisurely floating around 50 meters in the air in front of me. Searching inside my memories, I dragged a forbidden formula to my mind. O mana of the wind, thy composed breath be desired. Hear and heed me now, blades of wind that cannot be defied. O composed storm of rage. Gathering my palms, I opened my upper, middle, and lower dungeons and shoved the natural energy I gathered from my surroundings into my circle. Gah! The pain of being ripped apart assailed me. From the crown of my head to the soles of my feet, unidentifiable mana raged and tore through my mana pathways. It's too late. You. Noticing my abnormality, the wyvern flapped its wings and tried to run. Kukukago. Wind tornado. The strongest spell among the 5th circle wind spells, several times stronger than the 4th circle wind cutter. That was this storm of wind blades. Flash. Pushing out my hands with great force, the mana and will gathered in my circle spewed towards my foes. Whoosh. Mana, fused with my will, caused a small burst of wind to form with a flash of blue light. Whoosh. But it was only small for a moment. Cutting the air like knives, the storm of wind blades rushed onto the wyvern and lord. Growl. For the first time, I heard the wyvern cry out sharply. Bobby Abam. S-shield magic. Surprisingly, a huge shield was deployed on the wyvern's body, blocking the wind tornado. But it lasted for only a moment before the shield completely shattered with a loud cracking noise and the wyvern was overtaken by the magic's rage. Though the attack power had been considerably reduced due to the shield, the 5th circle magic boasted an unbeatable force. Flapping its wounded wings, the wyvern faltered in the air as it flew in sloppy circles. Finally, it was unable to regain its balance and fell to the ground. Ha! Ragged breaths overwhelmed me. After all, I had used magic in defiance of the circle restriction. But then, the lacerating pain that had persisted in my mana pathways moments before disappeared, as if it had all been an illusion. I noticed then that my circle felt considerably more substantial than before. The 5th circle? Shockingly, instead of 4 circles rotating around my waist, there were 5. Hell, you should have come sooner. This breakthrough was achieved by overcoming a life-threatening situation. It was already the 2nd time this had happened. While I was wrestling with the shock of ascending to the 5th circle, the wyvern flopped as its huge weight hit the earth, the impact causing a loud boom. Bending down slightly, I grabbed one of the knight's swords on the ground. Then, my eyes gleaming, I slowly walked towards the wyvern about 100 meters away. Asterisk. Zagan. Snap out of it, Zagan. Danian, Viscount and Master of Dapus Kingdom's Fiori territory, anxiously called out his wyvern Zagan's name. This wyvern was the one who had made him, a formerly ordinary knight, into the person he was today. It was thanks to Zagan that he received his Viscount peerage as well as his territory, and eventually, he was even able to become a member of the Royal Army Sky Knights. This beloved wyvern of his was wounded by the powerful magic of the Black Mage and was flailing about. Zagan's wings were sturdy enough that most things couldn't damage them, but now, having been ripped to shreds, they were in a sorry state. Even the wyvern's armor, which was drawn with automatic shield magic, had taken damage here and there. His mournful eyes filled with pain. The wyvern gazed at his owner pitifully. Zagan. He had loved and cherished this wyvern more than family. If Zagan hadn't chosen him when he graduated the Sky Knight Academy, all of today's glory would have been impossible. Viscount Danian felt heartrending pain. 15 years. 15 years spent together with Zagan. Such a crushing defeat and terrible wounds were a first for them. Does it hurt? To think that someone who's supposed to be the lord of a territory would cry because of a wyvern, came a cutting remark from the black-haired magic swordsman who had drawn near. He was surely a black mage. With a clang, Viscount Danian drew the lightweight longsword that was granted to Sky Knights. Then, he summoned his mana and swung towards the enemy with an aura blade. Clunk. However, affected by powerful emotion, Danian's form was lacking, and the black mage sent his sword flying with a single blow. You're really funny. Did you think I would let myself be killed just because you said so? Said the black mage, his eyes filled with rage. What are you going to do? Harboring a sense of foreboding, Viscount Danian looked at the black mage, who was smiling crookedly and biting his lips. Upon seeing the mage's sword pointed at his wyvern, Danian suffered a shock to his heart. Why? Worried I'll give it an easy death. Don't worry. I was curious anyway, about how sturdy a wyvern's hide is and how many kilos of meat that body holds, that is, uttered the black mage ruthlessly without hesitation. Kill me instead. Don't worry about that either. No use letting you live when you're a lord who lets his people starve and get killed by monsters. The black mage's sharp words stabbed into Viscount Danian's heart. What do you mean by that? My territory is better to live in than other territories. The taxes are low, and the residents are all happily living here. So what crap are you spewing? Having decided not to become a corrupt noble when he became a knight of the kingdom, Viscount Danian bristled at the black mage's words. Even if he was killed, he couldn't cast away his honor and pride. Danian had no doubt that his conscience was completely clear. Asterisk. Would you take a look at this guy? This so-called lord was so convinced that it seemed even a lie detector wouldn't go off on him. To be honest, my first impression of him wasn't bad. What a problem. Having received a robust 21st century moral education, I couldn't just kill willy-nilly. However, I didn't mind correcting the lord's utter foolishness. You want me to believe a lie like that? Most of the villages near the Zar Mountains received no assistance from your knights and soldiers, and therefore have had to either die out or farm with swords in their hands with their lives on the line. What's so good about a lord like that? I can't deny that point. It's not possible to cover a big territory with only so many knights and soldiers. The lord acknowledged my words honestly. The look of distress surfacing on his face grew more potent. Right, that can also be the case. That's the sin of someone who was born a commoner, after all. But why do you take so much in taxes for villages suffering like that? I'm not sure you remember me, but I was the person who delivered Luna Village's taxes. I know. Black Mage. How could I forget your black hair? You remember? Then this is easy to explain. The taxes that Luna Village had to pay wasn't the 30 golds you recall. What? It wasn't 30 golds, responded the lord in surprise. This guy, is he naive or just dumb? You didn't even know that, as the lord? Well, it's a small village, so it's understandable. But listen well. While you were playing around in the capital, your residents were getting sucked dry by your pig of an administrator, merchants, and knights. It wasn't 30 gold, but 50 gold that Luna Village had to pay, and the other villagers had to pay the same, you stupid lord. What? 50 gold? To think it wasn't 30 gold. You probably didn't know. So you didn't even know the real reason why you chased me all the way here today and suffered this humiliating loss. The Viscount had nothing to say to my sarcastic remarks and was lost in thought. Is what you have said true? He asked in a low voice. If you are truly curious, take that fancy-pantsy bird of yours and go around the villages. Actually, it would be faster to just ask the knights next to you. The knights that had fled at the Lord's command had approached their commander's side and were pointing their drawn swords at me. As corrupt as they were, they still wished to protect their master. Sir Rubis, see commander, awaiting your order. One of the knights stepped out of the group of bystanders and lowered his head. Are the words of this mage true, that the administrator has been embezzling taxes behind my back? That is, Knight Rubis trailed off, unable to answer in the negative. Rubis, my friend. To entrust the territory to you and leave was a mistake. The Viscount's voice was choked with tears. It seemed this Rubis fellow was a close friend of the Lord's. So you mean to say that everyone knew? Ha! So everyone knew that I had become just the kind of merciless, exploitative noble that you and I had disdained so much when the territory was young. See, Commander, please deliver unto us death. Ark, at the Lord's enraged exclamation, every knight fell to their knees. Ah, gods above, cried the Lord while looking into the sky. He had removed his helmet, and hot, manly tears were raining from his eyes. Oh, geez. The mood had turned strange. Apparently, the Lord had entrusted his territory to his friend Rubis and had left. While he was gone, starting with the administrator, all the knights had made a real killing. It's a shame, but I should end things here. Previously, I wanted to just roast the big bird and his master up with a fireball. But now, I felt kind of sorry for the dude. He had been thoroughly betrayed by the people he trusted. He must be pained to death right now. A man should settle matters within the home first, then tend to the needs of the kingdom and land. How could you aid the nation when your own house is a mess? How can you raise your sword in service to your king like that? The saying that applied now was, the country and the home must be at peace. Thinking that, I sternly rebuked the Viscount. Mage, pray tell, what is your name? Halting his tears, the Lord asked for my name. Kyre, I responded curtly. Kyre, I will remember it. I will never forget the things I received today. Is that good or bad? I was a mage with no regard for nobility or the world, and I had obviously trashed his clearly expensive-looking favorite steed, or rather, favorite bird. On top of that, I even exposed his weakness, so I was really curious as to how he felt about me. Just do as you please, because now I fear nothing. In truth, I was grateful to this Viscount. It was because I had undergone a near-fatal crisis that I could enter the fifth circle. I should skedaddle now. I was indeed a fifth circle mage now, but because it had happened in such a crisis, my mana and circle were both unstable. What I needed to do now was to find somewhere safe and stabilize them. If there's nothing else, I shall take my leave. Surely these guys wouldn't grab my lapels now. I was someone who had crushed this considerably high-level-looking wyvern right in front of them. They were probably grateful that I didn't kill them all. What you looking at? Oi, should I cut out those eyes of yours? The moment the Lord and knights turned their heads, the girthy wyvern pierced me with his gaze, his pupils filled with murderous intent. Gruel, you playing, scamp, bird brain. As a person who imagined chickens when thinking about birds, I already associated this wyvern as a giant fried chicken. It was necessary for all creatures on earth to teach where the hierarchy laid with a heavy fist. And I will take this sword with me. It's not as good as mine, but oh well. As a good person, I'll take that loss with grace. Oh, it fits right in the hand. The old chief's favorite sword had lost its glamour from blocking the Lord's attack. So I decided to make off with the large, thick sword, previously belonging to a knight, that I picked up just now with the intent to carve off the wyvern's hide. Under everyone's gaze, I took a good quality sheath from one of the knights that was starting to wake up from his electric shock. A length of 1.3 meters with a weight of about 4 kilos. Perfect. It wasn't a short sword, which also suited me well, but the hilt was sturdy and fit well in my hand. I liked it immediately. What a good day. I strode towards my horse, who had gone a distance away and was blankly staring into the sky as if nothing had happened. My first adventure had started with a scuffle. I had the feeling that my journey would be a bit rocky.